Thank you, and sorry for the slight delay. I'd like to welcome everyone, members, officers, and members of the public to this meeting of the Planning Control Committee. I'd particularly like to thank the members of the public who've come out on a very, very hot night, and I'm just pleased to say that the aircon is working well in here, but we'll try and get you home, get your items done, and get home in a timely fashion. I would also like to welcome the new Planning Committee. I'm glad to see it's mostly familiar faces. And to thank them, because I'm very, very conscious that the planning committee is a lot of meetings. I think we'll be doing 2 a month as it stands. It's a far higher commitment than any other committee we do. And I would like to thank the committee members on behalf of the public for giving up your time and your commitment to do this. Before this meeting starts, I'd like to invite the committee clerk to explain how proceedings will work.
If a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on their microphone unit. The microphone will turn green and the chair will be alerted for their request to speak. When the chair invites you to speak, the microphone will be made live and turn red, at which point you can speak. When the public participants are invited to speak, their microphones will be made live by the committee officer and will turn red. When requested to vote, voting will be on the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone units. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room and will be visible on the YouTube live stream. In the event of a tied vote, the chair will have the casting vote. Are there any questions before the meeting starts? No, I'll hand back to the chair then. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The other point I would make to members of the public, just to avoid any confusion later on, obviously we have registered speakers here who will speak. When I ask if there's any questions, I'm afraid I'm only asking that of the people in the front row who are in the committee. It's not for public questions, but just to avoid any debates later. Right. Item 1, apologies for absence. I've received no apologies for absence. It's a good start for the year. Item 2, minutes of the meetings on the 3rd of April 2025 and the 15th of April 2025. I would like to propose that we take as read and approve as a true record the minutes of the meetings held on the 3rd of April and the 15th of April 2025. May I have a seconder? Councillor Mantle, thank you. Quickest on the draw. If we could vote on that, please, all those. Oops. Sorry, any comments? I'm so sorry. Thank you, James. Any comments on the minutes? There you go. So it's keen to vote. Could I see all those in favour of approving the minutes?
That's carried.
Thank you very much. 3, notification of other business. There is none. Item 4, Chair's announcements. Recording. In accordance with Council policy, this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be available both on the Council's YouTube channel as well as on the Council's ModGov site alongside the documents for this meeting. Declarations of interest. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under the Chair's announcement on your agenda. To clarify matters for the registered speakers, members of the public in groups of supporters or objectors have up to 3 minutes per person. Where there is only one public supporter or objector, then that member of the public will have up to 5 minutes. I will remind you of this when you come to speak. It's not a competition quiz. There are separate groups for people registered as member advocate objectors, member advocate supporters who are councillors, and for the applicant, their agent or representatives. This is up to 5 minutes per group. All speakers will receive a warning when you have 1 minute remaining. Following the conclusion of your time, members will be invited to ask points of clarification. And again, when you have a minute left, I will do it gently. I'm not going to shout you down. At the end of your allotted time, you'll be advised that the time allowed has ended and you must cease. Again, as gently as possible. I'm not using the gavel. Section 4.8.23a. For the purposes of clarification, in order to vote on an agenda item at this meeting, a member must be present for the entirety of the debate and consideration for that item. If a member leaves the room at any point of the item, they will not be able to vote. I will take a comfort break at a suitable point in the meeting should proceedings go on at length. 5, changes to agenda order. I've agreed to change to the order of agenda since publication, and items 7 and 8 will be taken after item 10. Therefore, the new agenda item order is item 6, item 9, item 10, item 7, item 8, and finally item 11. I could ask if anyone can remember that, but I'm not going to. I barely can. 6, this is exciting bit, meeting cutoff. As you are aware, there's a significant amount of business on the agenda. As outlined under 4.8.24G of the Council's Constitution, if the meeting proceeds to 10:30 p.m, the item being considered at that time will be the final item considered at tonight's meeting. The remaining business will be deferred to the next meeting on Thursday, the 17th of July. I'm hoping we get through it all. I certainly intend to. Can I just, do I do this or? Yeah, okay. So this is a roll call for the public participants. Mr. William Rogers for item 6. Ms. Jill Powell, item 6. Mr. Matthew Lee, item 6. Councillor Tom Tyson, item 6. Ms. Mandy Owen, item 6. Yep. Mr. Luke Rogers, item 7. Mr. Ryan McKindo, item 8. Mr. Simon Brooks, item 9. Councillor Claire Billing, item 9. Mr. Alvin Tutu, item 9. Ms. Jackie Sayers, item 10. Ms. Marlene Gray, item 10. And Councillor Claire Winchester, item 10. Thank you very much. And which will move on to our first substantive item, which is 6, 24-02214 FP, land on the northwest side of Green Lanes, Ashwell. Councillor Tyson, I believe, wishes to declare an interest.
Absolutely, yes. I'm the ward member advocate for this item. I called it in, and I therefore will be taking a seat with the public speakers at this point.
Okay, we set. Lovely. Can I ask Melissa Tyler to present this item, please?
Thanks, Chair, and good evening, councillors. Following the addendum sent to you earlier this week, in addition, I just wanted to make you aware of I received an objection letter following the publication of the report from Mr. and Mrs. Rogers. The objection letter covers the 2 refused applications and dismissed appeal decisions and factors of highway safety. These issues have been dealt with in the report. Can you go to the presentation, please? So the proposed site on Green Lane is located to the northeast of the village of Ashwell. Green Lane is classed as a private road, which is defined as a highway that is not maintained by the Highways Authority, but is still classed as a highway with right of pass and repass. Located within the settlement boundary of Ashwell, as defined by policy SP2 of the local plan, it comprises maintained grass and trees forming part of a private rear garden to an existing residential property. To the west and the north site boundaries are arable agricultural fields. To the south abuts a residential parcel with the dwelling set back from the boundary, and the eastern boundary runs along Green Lane with an existing access point. Next slide, please. So this photo is taken from Google, just showing the access point from Station Road into Green Lane. Next slide, please. So this is taken just within the junction, looking north up Green Lane. And next photo, please. So the site is largely enclosed by a significant tree and hedge line along the front boundary with with Green Lane. The tree belt is to be retained where possible along the front boundary of the site, which are recommended to be conditioned. Next slide, please. This is the existing access to the site, which is to be used for the site entrance, which is to be widened to allow sight lines and passing areas. Next slide, please. So this photo is just taken by the access point looking within the site. Next slide, please. This is another photo within the site looking towards the neighbouring dwelling number 7. And next slide, please. This is the view looking opposite to the open countrysides. And next slide, please. So this is the red line plan showing the additional passing bays to the south of the site along Green Lane. And next slide, please. So this is the site layout. Planning permission is sought for the erection of 7 dwellings. The housing mix would be 2 2-bed dwellings, 3 3-bed dwellings and 2 4-bed dwellings with associated access, landscaping and parking. You can see the mitigation measures of the 2 passing bays for the vehicle and pedestrian along the boundary of number 7 within the red line. Next slide, please. So this is just a street scene along Green Lane, just without the trees in the foreground, so you can see the street scene. And next slide, please. So the next few slides will show the elevations and floor plans of each of the plots. So this is plot 1 and 2, a pair of semi 3-bed detached dwellings with attached single garages. Materials include yellow stock brick and slate roof. And next slide. So there's the other elevations and the next slide and the floor plans. And the next slide. This is plot 3, which is a 4-bed detached dwelling house with attached single garage, with materials including a red stock brick and tile hanging and red roof. And next slide is the other elevations, and the next slide is the floor plan. And next slide, please. So plots 5 to 7 are terraced block. Oh no, sorry, this is a 4-bed detached house. Sorry, jumping the gun. With integrated garage. This was yellow stock and slate. So next slide. And the next slide, please. And the next slide. So this is the terrace of 3. Plot 5 is a 3-bed terrace with integrated garage, and plots 6 and 7 are 2 2-bed terrace properties, which have car parking spaces at the front of the property. Materials include red stock, tile hang and red roof. And the last 3 slides are just artist impressions submitted by the agent of the proposed dwellings. So just to conclude, the council doesn't have a 5-year land supply for delivering housing land. The proposal will deliver 7 dwellings within the settlement boundary of Ashwell. Social and economic benefits would arise from the modest housing development. Overall, the provision of the proposed development in this location within a Category A village, which will contribute towards maintaining the vitality of the village, is a planning benefit to which significant weight is added. It is considered that the design and layout of the proposed scheme is acceptable, though it's through its low density nature that would respond positively to the site's rural location and high quality buildings. The proposal will not result in any material harm to the reasonable living conditions and well-being of the neighbours with respect to over-dominance, overlooking or lost daylight sunlight. Highway safety issues have been raised by the parish council and neighbours. However, these have been addressed by the applicant, and the Highway Authority consider that the highway safety benefits would arise from the proposed development. Overall, in terms of sustainable transport and highway safety, this matter to which limited positive weight is added. The proposal would have an urbanising impact on the appearance of the site. However, the site is large residential garden within the defined settlement of Ashwell, and the design of the proposed development is considered acceptable. It's considered that the adverse impact of the proposed development are limited, and that would not significantly demonstrably outweigh the benefits that would arise from the delivery of 7 dwellings. Happy to answer any clarifications.
Thanks, Melissa. Do the members of the planning committee have any questions for the planning officer? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Melissa. Just one question. The roof space, in your view, is it sufficiently large for somebody to put a bedroom in there under permitted development?
Potentially.
The 4-bedroom look quite tall.
They're all, if you go back to the street scene, they're all similar height.
They're all similar heights. Okay.
Yeah. I think they're quite consistent.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Peace.
Can I just clarify what the position is with respect to waste and refuse collection? Can the wagons access the site, or what's the bin drag distance?
And do we get comment from waste? Yeah, so waste did come back with comments which were just general comments. So assuming that they were happy with the turning circle. I mean, the access is quite wide because it's a passing bay and the entrance.
Do we have any other questions? Councillor Billing.
Can I just go back to that point, because in the report it says that the vehicle tracking plan is not the correct size for waste collection vehicle. However, drawings do not show entering or exiting the site. Sorry, that's the North Herts waste comments 3.4. Sorry.
Oh, strong.
So they put vehicle tracking plan is a correct size waste collection vehicle.
Show it entering or exiting the site.
No, but then they go on to say that it's just a comment. So they haven't asked for that plan.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any other questions at this point? Councillor Mantle.
Talking of waste, are all the houses provided with storage for the 3 or 4 bins that will now have to be provided? And in particular, I'm thinking of the middle house and the terrace of 3.
I conditioned that the bin stores, I think I conditioned the bin stores information. Let me just double check. Is it condition 16? 16, you couldn't see it. Yeah. Condition 16 says prior to first occupation, a scheme of screening of the bin stores and details of the cycle parking shall be submitted.
So that means that the centre house in the 3-bedroom terrace would have to would presumably have the bin store at the back and have to be able to take the bins around to the side of one of the other houses. Am I understanding correctly what's proposed?
So the site plan, yeah, they'll either have to have them at the front or an access around to the back. will be covered in, because we've asked for the details.
Okay. Councillor Mann, do you want to ask? You're fine. Any other questions? Right. In which case, we'll move on to our first public speaker, Mr. William Rogers. Sorry, William, you've got 3 minutes, and I'll let you know when you've got a minute left.
I've actually had to change my address to the members because not long ago we made them aware of the addendum referring to a further amended highways consultation. This is the third iteration of their consultation. As often happens, there's clearly been further dialogue between the highways officer and the applicant, and the latest iteration from highways, which was not in response to any scheme amendment, has produced a bland summary statement referring to enhances, more friendly, etc. In short, it's not recommending, it's not saying to refuse either. And it rightly says it is for NHDC to determine. It's a private road. I just wanted to make sure that members were not confused by this further move. No comment does not mean no harm. We've already pointed out in letters of objection that there seems to be some history in the pre-app process between highways and the applicants, where no one even discussed whether Green Lane was private or public. It is private with no rights of public access. That's been confirmed by the highways legal team about 5 years ago. The formal consultation following that pre-app didn't match what the applicants were expecting or hoping for, and following a minor tweak to the scheme, the mitigation area outside number 7, the third pedestrian refuge was added. And in spite of managing to elicit a supplemental comment from highways that the third refuge will definitely help, the concluding statement was unchanged in their original position. If the development were accessed by a maintainable highway, i.e. within the authority of highways, it would be refused on the grounds of unsustainability and as an unsafe access. We took the trouble to review the officer report for the 2018 appeal. In it, she refers to the high-level detailed review which highways undertook on Green Lane at that time. It was unequivocal, stating it is already at capacity and the long effective single width of over 70 metres was unsafe for use by further development.
1 minute left.
That harm was rated as severe. We just wish members to be aware of the extensive work which was undertaken at that time by highways and NHDC in determining this very same part of access, and they're different sites, but the access is key. That is what is being the great concern for all of us who live there. Both of those, you refused both of those on the grounds of access. It was unsafe, unsustainable. Both were examined at appeal, and both inspectors explicitly agreed with those findings. Nothing has changed in the lane since that time. That's all I had to say.
Thank you very much. Right. Do any of the committee members have any points of clarification for the speaker? No? In which case, if we could move on, I've got to Miss Jill Powell. Jill, you have 3 minutes. I'll let you know when you've got a minute left.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. My name's Jill Powell, and I'm here as an objector to the proposal. I'm fully aware of the letters which have been written objecting to this planning application. The Powell family have lived in Green Lane since 1956, for many years at Baldwin's Corner, where Mr. and Mrs. Lee now live with their family, and for the last 9 years at 10 Green Lane. Green Lane is an unadopted private gravel lane and no public right-of-way, which has been maintained by the residents as long as I can remember. I'm here on behalf of me and my husband, and being elderly residents of Green Lane, 82 and 85 respectively, and we're extremely concerned regarding the safety of traffic negotiating the area between numbers 3, 5 and 7. The narrowness of this bottleneck makes the access unsustainable and unfit for purpose. Access to Green Lane is via the busy road junction of Station Road and Lucas Lane. Whilst I was driving my car recently from the west turning left into Green Lane, negotiating a parked vehicle at the top of the lane, I was confronted by a large delivery van coming up Green Lane at speed towards the junction. This van had to mount the pavement to avoid hitting me. I'm not sure how an accident was avoided. We're extremely conscious of the increase in traffic over the years which uses Green Lane. This application, if approved, will create an unacceptable increase in traffic for which Green Lane is undeniably incapable of delivering. Our property is virtually opposite the bottleneck between the properties 3, 5 and 7 and the Maltings. We walk from our bungalow into the village several times a week and are extremely concerned about ours and others' safety aspect of Green Lane should this application go ahead. Unfortunately, it is the way of modern society that a lot of shopping is done online today. Delivery, courier vehicles delivering to properties in Green Lane travel very fast and take no account of lack of road width and the fact that other road users may be in danger.
1 minute.
Mr. and Mrs. Gates, both elderly, who live at number 5, cannot be here this evening, but they have been much involved with discussion regarding this proposal. Mr. Gates suffers from peripheral neuropathy, which means he has weak legs and limited mobility and relies very much on his wife for care. Number 5's exit gate abuts directly onto Green Lane, and therefore they're extremely vulnerable to traffic passing this bottleneck to get to their car for hospital visits, shopping, etc. This application, even as amended, fails to present an answer to the narrowness of the bottleneck, which cannot be overcome by whatever means. How, therefore, is even more traffic going to safely negotiate this area? Please put yourselves in our position. We don't want an accident to happen. Hopefully, NHDC will, as has been done twice before, take an account of this fundamental safety issue and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do the members of the committee have any points of clarification from the speaker? No? Right, I shall move on to our third public speaker, which is Matthew Lee. Matthew, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. As Mr. Rogers has said, this is now the third time where this committee has been asked to approve the use of exactly the same part of this old private track for access for a new development, which it is wholly unsuitable and currently provides a real and present danger to safety. Green Lane is not a safe thoroughfare. It is not a typical road to which simple formulaic highway calculations, if applied, will ensure road safety for all users. Highways is on record in its various consultation responses as describing it as thus. If it were accessed by maintainable highway, i.e. within highways jurisdiction, it would be refused on the grounds of being unsustainable with limited pedestrian access. This is exactly consistent with the findings of the 2 previous planning inspectors. You've been sent photos which show the extent of the parking issues which happens in the Green Lane area and which further constrains the narrow width of the bottleneck between Station Road and number 7, up to some 75 metres. All of it shared service and most of it uneven. I equally draw committee members to the photographs we sent through on bin day, which clearly demonstrates the fact that bin lorries have to reverse down the full width with no pedestrian access on either side. It is a real risk to safety and the safety of my 2 children. Nothing has changed in Green Lane since the last 2 appeal dismissals. The lane from the south of number 7 as far as Station Road is unsafe, and its use as access would cause severe harm. This is the very same unchanged stretch of lane which this application seeks to use for access. The claims and suggestions that the safety issues from the 2 previous appeals have been overcome are misleading and factually incorrect. The real risk to safety remains, and this proposal will increase that risk, not remove it. It is a fact. Nothing in this scheme makes any change to the bottleneck. It will be entirely unchanged.
1 minute.
Put very simply, there are no measures which the applicants can employ. The only distinctions between the 2018 scheme of 9 units and the application scheme of 7 units is they are directly opposite each other, one on the east side, one on the west. What they have in common is that the curtailage of the boundaries to their access is to use the same unchanged part of Green Lane from number 7 down Station Road. Highways has refused those 2 previous applications, seeking the use on each occasion the planning officer's recommendation to refuse. Planning Committee's determined refusal explicitly states this part of Green Lane to be unsafe and its use of access was caused severe harm. This is a matter of safety for all users, all pedestrians, my children. and this location cannot provide the ensured safety for all users as required by the NPPF. This is also entirely consistent with the two previous appeal decisions. Members have already determined twice against this exact same access, and this has been upheld by the Planning Inspectorate. Para 32 of the NPP.
May I ask you to wind up, please? Please finish your sentence.
Last point. The NPPF requires that safe and suitable access to the site can be achieved for all users. Nothing has changed since there, and therefore, as a fundamental issue of real and present safety, we respectfully ask that this application should be refused.
Matthew. Are there any points of clarification from the committee members for this speaker? No? In which case, can I ask Member Advocate, Councillor Tom Tyson. Tom, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as the ward member who called in this application, I'd just like to say a few words in support of the objections from the parish council and the residents you've heard from just now. First, I'd just like to acknowledge that there is an error in the parish council's submission, which does state that North Herts can meet its 5-year land supply, which, as we've heard, is no longer the case. So I'll just acknowledge that point. This is a windfall site located within the settlement boundary, just. As such, there are considerations to be made concerning the density and scale of the development. Obviously, 7 dwellings on a 0.3 hectare site is low density, but the Ashwell Village design statement, part of its neighbourhood plan, says proposals should reflect the density of the development that surrounds the development area. And this one clearly does not do that. The area beyond the Maltings up Green Lane is characterised by its open rural nature with only a loose scattering of houses along the lane, with Baldwin's Corner eventually making a full stop at the end. In terms of scale, members should consider whether the benefits of the proposed 7 homes outweigh the urbanising effect of such a cluster of houses on an edge of village site backing onto farmland. However, the real sticking point here is with this application, as you've already heard, is the issue of highway safety. Ashwell's neighbourhood plan policy ASH4A Part 8 seeks to ensure that traffic generation and parking does not adversely affect vehicular and pedestrian safety. And as we know, NPPF paragraph 32 requires that safe and suitable access to the site can be achieved for all people. We know from the inspector's response to the previous application that severe harm to highway safety is the big problem with this site on a single track lane. This version of the latest application to develop along Green Lane does not overcome that harm. The provision of pedestrian refuges along the route will improve things for people on foot, but only as long as they can see and be seen past parked vehicles and the refuges are kept properly maintained so as to be free of overhanging growth. There's still a problem with vehicles on the single track lane. The plan shows 2 new passing bays, one of which is actually the entrance to the development site itself, so it's a bit cheeky to call it a new passing bay. The manoeuvring required if residents are trying to enter and leave the development by car at the same time will be extensive if they can't pass each other just before the access point or on it. And if a car is trying to leave as the delivery van or the refuse collection vehicle arrives, someone is definitely going to have to reverse to let the other one past. That represents a clear risk to pedestrians and cyclists in the vicinity, including children. The other passing bay indicated on the plan is shown to increase the total road width to 4.7 metres, but that's not wide enough to allow a refuse collection vehicle at almost 2.9 metres to pass a family saloon with a width of some 1.9 metres. And the same would apply to a fire engine, and it's almost as bad for an ambulance. And this is completely unacceptable. And that's at a passing bay which is wider than many other parts of that lane. The previously refused application predicted 45 trips per day by car and 4 by goods vehicle from a development of 9 houses. And this version with 7 homes would generate slightly fewer trips by car, but probably include quite a lot more deliveries by truck and van. A medium Ford Transit van is almost 2.5 metres wide. It could pass a private car in the passing bay with just 30 centimetres to spare, assuming both drivers were skillful enough to hug the curb. If not, one or other of them would have to reverse back to where the lane is wider, and pedestrians and cyclists would need to seek refuge as best they could. So the outstanding question for members tonight is whether this proposal meets the requirement of NPPF paragraph 32. You've heard from the people who know
1 minute.
Green Lane better than anyone. I agree with them, and the parish council that this is not a location that can safely sustain an increase in the amount of vehicles, or indeed in the numbers of pedestrians and cyclists wanting to use the lane. So as things stand, this application should be refused once again on the grounds of harm to highway safety at the very least. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Do any of the members of the committee have any points of clarification from Tom? No? In which case, Councillor Tyson, I get to throw you out of the room in the nicest possible way. Okay. Can I call the applicant's agent, Mandy Owen? Mandy, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Mandy Owen. I'm an Associate Director from Boyer, the planning consultant for the application. I am representing Offspray Homes, who are the applicant for this application. I am delighted the application has been recommended for approval. We've been working with your officers at North Hertfordshire Council and Hertfordshire County Council on this proposal for over 18 months, with the pre-application submission in December 2023. There has been genuine collaboration with your officers for this whole period. In light of North Hertfordshire's lack of 5-year housing land supply, the presumption in favour of sustainable development applies, and this application should be approved unless the adverse impacts of the proposal would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. Your officers have considered the proposals, the benefits, and any potential adverse impacts and have recommended it for approval. The application before you proposes 7 houses ranging in size from 2 to 4 bedrooms. This range in size of the houses reflects the requirements of the neighbourhood plan. The design of the houses reflect architectural forms and materials seen in the local vernacular. The committee report notes that the houses would have generous space in between them, parking, cycle storage, and large gardens. Proposed parking provision is policy compliant. The houses would benefit from air source heat pumps and electric vehicle charging points. Along Green Lane would be a tree belt comprising retained and proposed trees to enhance the verdant nature of Green Lane. The application site is located within the settlement boundary of Ashwell, and development in this location is therefore in accordance with policy SP2. In a number of objections, inaccurate reference is made to the previous appeal decisions at another site on Green Lane. The 2 previous planning refusals and appeal decisions relate to a site on the opposite side of Green Lane, entirely separate to this site. To clarify, there's no relevant planning history on this subject site. Furthermore, those 2 appeal decisions related to sites which sat outside the settlement boundary. The application includes improvements and upgrades to Green Lane. These include localised widening along Green Lane, which will prevent a situation whereby 2 vehicles meet and therefore eliminates any need for a vehicle to reverse, including bin lorries. It also allows for safe access for emergency vehicles and allows for a car and an emergency vehicle to pass. 3 pedestrian refuge points are proposed, which would allow safe access for pedestrians along Green Lane. Hertfordshire County Council Highways have confirmed that the pedestrian refuges make the proposals pedestrian friendly. Both the parish council and a number of the local residents have raised an objection on the grounds of legal access to the site along Green Lane. Green Lane is not an adopted highway and there are no public rights of way over Green Lane. All properties situated on Green Lane have rights of access over Green Lane. Number 7 Green Lane has a registered freehold title which confirms a right of access over Green Lane for the current owners and any successors, including owners of plots constructed as part of this planning application. In legal terms, there is nothing to prevent the right of access being enlarged for future residents. All improvements along Green Lane, including the road widenings and provision of pedestrian refuges, would occur within land controlled by the applicant. The committee report is clear that the legal access over Green Lane is not a planning consideration.
1 minute.
The application before you represents a policy compliance scheme within the settlement boundary. As is clear from the committee report, this application has been subject to thorough assessment and scrutiny by your officers, statutory bodies and local stakeholders. Following amendments, the application does not have any objections from statutory consultees. Osprey Homes have listened and responded and are delighted that your officers have recommended to you that planning permission be granted. I respectfully request that you resolve to support your officers' recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Are there any points of clarification from the committee members to the speaker? Councillor Woodall.
Yes, I just wanted to ask if any of the homes that are being built are accessible or sustainable for disabled people.
One of the 3 bedrooms has one of the 3 bedroom houses has a bedroom on the ground floor.
Did you want to come back on that at all, Caroline? Or? Thank you. Councillor Prescott.
Thank you. I heard the applicant's agents dismiss the previous planning applications and appeal decisions on the basis they're not in the same plot, and I understand that, but they would have shared the same access route. So I do think there is some validity to that, and I'd like to ask the applicant's agent, does the fact that they were the appeal decisions related to a different plot actually, should that be dismissed even though they use the same access route?
Thank you. The point I was making about the inaccurate references was that in quite a few objections raised against the application, it was noted that these appeal decisions were on this site. And it was just merely clarifying that that's not the case. This is an entirely separate site with a separate highways proposal. So I'm not saying we need to completely dismiss anything that happened in the previous planning history from the other site. Certainly lessons have been learnt, which we've looked at. The latest appeal decision, the issue there for the inspector was about deliverability of the improvements over Green Lane, and the only way that the widenings on Green Lane could occur was through a Grampian condition, and the inspector was not happy that deliverability could be guaranteed if reliance of highway improvements was through a Grampian condition. In this case, it's a different situation whereby all of the localised widenings and the pedestrian refuges all occur on land within the applicant's control. So there's no need for the Grampian condition, which was the inspector's concern in that previous appeal.
Thank you. Councillor Prescott, do you want to come back? Councillor Peace.
You mentioned EV charging and air source heat pumps. I wondered what the rationale was for not including PV as well.
Thank you. In this case, when we've had a look at the air source heat pumps, which are appropriate in this site, this gives a 71% betterment against the carbon emissions set out in building regulations. So in this case, there was no need to do the solar panels in addition to the air source heat pumps. And the EV charging would be a charging point per house. So all houses would benefit from that.
Okay. Sorry, I thought Councillor Brown was diving for a microphone then. No? Any further questions? In which case, may I invite the officer to respond?
I don't think I've got any points of clarification.
Right. The officer's recommendation is to grant permission with removal of condition 13 as outlined in the supplementary document you received. Can I have a proposer for application of a motion to either approve, refuse, or defer the application from the committee, please? Sorry, Councillor Mantle.
I'll move that the officer's recommendation be approved and that permission be granted on the conditions stated.
Thank you, Councillor Mantle. Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Fernandez.
Second.
So, I open up to debate. Councillor Prescott.
Coming back on the point of access, I have to declare that I live a long way down a single track road, and I feel the pain of the residents. It is a constant nuisance of having to reverse and having to drive off the road because people invariably don't know how wide their own vehicles are, and it's a constant issue. I am concerned that I understand the applicant's agent was very eloquent and explained the benefits of it, and the report is quite detailed, but I still don't think I'm still not entirely satisfied with the access arrangements. I would at very least condition that none of the works are carried out on site, even the beginning of construction, until the roadway improvements have been completed, because to do so I think would cause an intolerable strain, a nuisance on the existing residents. Would that be something that the officer would be prepared to add as an additional condition?
Yeah, if it's pre-commencement, we just have to get consent from the applicant agent. I'm nodding.
By coincidence, the applicant's agent is right here.
She's just nodded behind you, so yeah, we could add a condition.
Fine.
Okay. Do I have any other something? Come on, Ruth, you're desperate to say something. I know you are. You always fall for it.
I actually feel really conflicted about this application. I'm still really concerned about the highways issues. What I've heard from the supporters and the objectors don't quite corroborate. I probably should have asked the planning officer, but it feels like some of the objectors are saying highways have said it's not safe, and yet we're saying highways have said it's safe. So I'd like some clarity on that. I mean, maybe it's because it's not an adopted road, so they're not a consultee in the same way. Is that right? Have I understood that correctly? Maybe officers can come back on that. The other thing I'm concerned about is the roof space, because obviously a lot of people in support of this application are in support of it because of the housing mix, and the houses that Ashwell requires are the smaller 2, 3, 4 bedroom, not the bigger ones. And we have had a precedent where 3 bedroom houses were allowed and then they built 4 to 5 bedroom houses. So at very least, I would want PD rights for the roof space to be removed as a condition. I don't know whether that can be done. Sean's nodding. And then the other thing that Councillor Tyson raised was the urbanisation of the area. And I think the planning officer did acknowledge that there's an urbanising impact and it doesn't really fit with the surroundings. So would that be sufficient grounds for refusal? That's a question to the planning officers.
Take my way through that. I'll take the easy one first. I think there was a condition that you suggested regarding roof space. Can I ask the officer if it's possible to?
Yes, it's possible to remove permitted development rights for alterations to the roof so that you cannot convert the roof, without planning permission, basically. So, for example, the insertion of dormers or roof lights can be permitted development, but we can remove that permitted development right so that permission would have to be sought from this council for such alterations to the roof to enable the conversion to a bedroom.
Fine. And does that one also require the agreement of the applicant's agent?
No, it doesn't, because it's not a pre-commencement condition. There's regulations that state if you're imposing pre-commencement conditions, then you have to seek the applicant's agreement prior to imposing those conditions. With regards to the proposed condition proposed by Councillor Prescott, a pre-commencement condition, the applicant's agent has confirmed agreement to that condition.
Okay. Councillor Brown, I'm thinking there was 2 questions to officers in there as well. Would you like to repeat them?
So there was one around the urbanising impact. Would that be sufficient grounds for refusal in your professional view? And the highways concern is have highways objected or haven't they, or are they not a statutory consultee? What can you clarify the position on that, please?
Officers.
So highways aren't a statutory consultee because it's not highway land, but they have given comment on the proposal and the mitigation. And in their final response, they said that the mitigation of the passing bays and the pedestrian bays are an improvement to the existing condition of Green Lane.
With regards to your question about could urbanising impact be a reasonable reason for refusal of planning permission, in my professional opinion, no, because the site is within the settlement boundary of Ashwell, where in principle we accept urban forms of development. Considerable effort has been made in terms of the design in this scheme, and we officers felt that the design is acceptable in this location. But in terms of the principle of urbanising this land, which is garden land, if it was outside the settlement of Ashwell, I'd be saying yes, you could reasonably refuse planning permission on that basis. But the site is within the settlement of Ashwell, and we have policies that say residential development in such locations is acceptable in principle.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Brown and then Councillor Prescott.
Back on the highways, then, given that highways are not a statutory consultee, they've kind of said it's improved, it's better. Highways and access is clearly the main objection and concern, and the safety concerns are really valid in my view. Is that sufficient grounds for refusal or not, in your professional opinion?
In my professional opinion, no. The Highway Authority, whilst not a statutory consultee because the land is not an adopted highway, have indicated that the proposal will actually result in a modest benefit in terms of the delivery of passing bays and passenger bays, which will improve upon the existing situation. Without this development, you would not have those proposed improvements. And this is the main difference between the previous schemes that were refused and dismissed on appeal. This council refused the previous applications on the basis that the proposed Grampian style condition, which is a negative condition, the inspector and the council felt there was no basis that you could actually comply with that condition because the applicant there didn't have control over land to be able to deliver the improvements. Whereas in this instance, the applicant has control over land to deliver the proposed improvements, which highways have said would actually be an improvement on the existing situation that will allow vehicles to pass each other. Whereas at the moment, there's insufficient room for vehicles to pass each other, requiring vehicles to reverse, and that situation would be addressed by this proposed scheme.
Thank you, Sean. Councillor Prescott.
Coming back on a point that was made earlier, not necessarily grounds for refusal, but I think the officer appeared a little confused when the question came up about bin location and access for the middle dwelling of the three house terrace. And I think the answer was the bins have got to either stay out front or they have to be accessed from the rear. But does the middle terrace have access to the rear without having to necessarily go over the land that's owned by either one of their neighbours?
So the details within the condition would cover where they get access from, whether it's that they locate a bin store at the front or whether they have access through someone else's garden.
But the design doesn't include a bin store at the front yet.
Conditions that detail be submitted prior to occupation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do we have any further questions? Councillor Peace.
I'll go for it. I think the highways
Sorry,
issue.
Councillor Peace, if I could interrupt you. Sorry.
Sure.
Sorry.
To fully answer that question, Councillor Prescott, the current layout plan shows a bin storage for plot 6 at the end of that cul-de-sac, right at the very end. So bins would not be stored in the rear garden to number 6. There's an allocated site on the layout plan for cycle storage and bin storage for that middle dwelling.
Okay, sure. Sorry, Councillor Peace.
I agree with Councillor Brown that this is tricky, and some of us seem to be reachings for reasons that we might be able to use to oppose this. My thought with the highways is, were this not a private road, highways would be rejecting it, would be refusing it. But because it isn't a valid planning consideration. So we're caught in a sort of circular argument that were this a highway, it would be refused, but because it isn't a planning consideration. And I think that's correct. But it still makes me worry that even though we've got this issue, there will still be people living on the lane with that lane, regardless of whether it's private or a highway. So we have to make sure it's safe.
Sean, did you want to comment on that?
Yes. Highways haven't said that. They've not formally responded as a statutory consultee, but Highways have said that the proposal would result in an improvement of the existing situation. Highways would not adopt a road such as this because it's not to adoptable standard, and that's a different matter. In this instance, even if officers concerned that there would actually be an improvement from a highways perspective rather than an adverse effect. But even if there was an adverse effect, what degree of adverse effect would it be? Well, it would be sufficient to refuse planning permission if there was an adverse effect, based upon the previous decisions on site across the road where they were not able to deliver those improvements that this scheme will deliver. And based upon the fact that we don't have a 5-year housing land supply, and therefore the tilted balance applies in this instance, whereby the adverse impacts would have to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits of delivering 7 houses. Any such refusal, in my opinion, would not be sustainable on appeal in this instance.
Okay, Councillor Prescott.
Not really wishing to prolong the agony, but 2 points. Firstly, the 5-year housing supply argument, and we hear it all the time, but we're months away from apparently approving an enormous development of houses just north of Baldock. I mean, how much longer can we retain this no 5-year land supply argument? And also, and this is a question this is a point that is not going to get clarified tonight. It would be nice to hear back from one of the members of the public who was objecting, on reflection on the points that we've heard this evening, the applicants agreeing to carry out the road improvements before anything else, whether that would in fact sway their argument. I suspect probably not, but it would be interesting to hear it nevertheless. I'm not asking for that because I know you can't do it, but I'm just reflecting.
Correct. Right. Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank my fellow councillors for the questions, because I've been conflicted as well, and I've swayed one way or the other throughout the conversation. I think with the 5-year land supply, we are where we are at this moment. It was different last year, we're different next year. I think the nub of the matter is it's a lane, and that is the clue in its name, it's a lane, but it sounds like actually it will be improved because of the conditions we're going to have. And I can see no reason why we should actually refuse this. So I'm going to actually vote in favour. Thank you.
So, anyone else? Okay. So, if I can clarify where I think we are. We have a proposal to approve the application. We have had also two additional conditions. Do we need to reiterate what those conditions are? Sorry.
That the road widening and passing bays would be implemented prior to commencement, and then removal of permitted development rights. I think it's class B and C for development in the roof.
Okay. So I have to ask Councillor Mantle and Councillor Fernandez as the mover and seconder of the proposal. Do you accept those conditions?
I'm happy to accept both of those conditions. I would like to say, by the way, I'm very interested in the discussion, but I live next door to a private single-track road serving 4 houses, and it's been there for about 25 years, and I'm not aware of any problems.
Thank you, Councillor Mantle. Councillor Fernandez, happy to accept. So, am I okay to put this to a vote? No? Yes. So we have a proposal to accept the application as amended with the 2 additional conditions. Can I see all those in favour of that, please?
That motion's carried.
Is carried. So I think we're going to have a slight hiatus while we do some swapping around. Thank you to the members of the public, by the way, who came for that item. Thank you for your time and your patience. I need to leave the chair because I'm an Alton councillor and I've been involved in discussions on this item. And Councillor Billing needs to leave the committee because she is the member's advocate on this. So there'll be a brief pause while we vacate. And Councillor Fernandez takes over the chair. Yes. Emma?
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is item 9. It's 25/0012/FP 25 Milestone Road, Hitchin, Hertfordshire. And Melissa Tyler is going to present.
Thanks, Chair. I just have one update. Following a site visit this week, I saw that the garden of the host property has been divided into 2 with a new fence. After seeking clarification on this, the applicant has confirmed the following. The property includes a self-contained annex, ideal for a young adult in need of semi-independent living arrangement. Following a visit from the Hertfordshire CYP placement officer, we chose to divide the garden into 2 sections. This decision was based on their recommendation and their potential for residents from different age groups to live on the premises. The annex is still part of the proposed CT use. It does not have a separate entrance and there is still interconnecting doors to the main property. They've simply reserved the area for a young person seeking more independence within the home. The proposed use is subject to the recommended conditions in the limit of number of residents under the age of 18 and its use within the use class C2 parameters. we can go to the presentation, please. So number 25 is a two-storey semi-detached dwelling situated on the east side of Milestone Road and with a residential area of Hitchin. The application's property features an existing single-storey side and front extension and garage conversion. The property currently features 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom at first floor with general living space on the ground floor and a self-contained 2-bed annex with 1 bathroom and living area on the ground floor. And next slide, please. So this is the property shown from the front, showing that there's a bus stop just outside and with hard landscaping on the front that will be able to park up to 4 spaces for staff. Next slide, please. So this is just a photo of the host property looking south along Milestone Road, which you can see has on-street parking as well, no restrictions. And next slide, please. Again, this is just the other angle, just showing the bus stop there. And next slide. So this is just a photo of the fence that I talked about in my update, splitting the garden into, taken from the neighbour's house. Next slide, please. Yeah, go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is just the layout plan showing that there can be 4 cars parked on that front drive. And next plan, please. So this is just the floor plan showing this plan shows the full plan of the care home with the shared accommodation on the ground floor with bedrooms at first floor, and the annex is shown on the right hand side as you look at the plan. And I think that's the end of the slides. I've outlined in my report that a principal development is acceptable. On balance, it is considered that the proposed change of use would not significantly affect the amenities of the neighbouring residents. There are no other relevant material planning considerations that indicate planning permission should not be granted. The proposal will comply with the relevant policies in the adopted local plan and the NPPF. That is the end of my presentation. Any questions? Happy to answer.
Thank you, Melissa. Any questions from the planning committee? Councillor Winstanley.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Melissa. Can I just clarify that annex, the potential resident of that annex, that's not in addition to the 3, that's one of the 3?
3.
Thank you.
Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. My question follows on from Councillor Winstanley's. It says accommodate 3 children. You've just talked about a young adult. Are we still talking about someone who's under 18?
So there's a condition that limits it to be under 18.
And Councillor Brown.
My question's similar, but I read somewhere in the report, and I can't remember where it was, but that they would be looked after all the time. There would be full-time care. If you're saying there's a more independent, so maybe would it be an older teenager, as admittedly still under 18?
Yeah.
Would they still be supervised 24/7
Yes,
or not?
there's
Because
there's
that clearly in the report that they would be.
Yes, there's a condition that a minimum of 2 staff have to be on site at all times.
Okay.
And it's also stated in there as supporting documents that there'll be 2 carers at all times.
Councillor Peace.
Thank you. So can I just clarify, we're just looking at a change of use to C2 and it's already got class C3B granted?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other requests? No. Right. Then we can ask our first public speaker, Mr. Simon Brooks, to speak. You have 5 minutes. I will try and give you a tactful warning when 1 minute when you're near the end. So please start.
Thank you. My name is Simon Brooks and me and my family live at number 27 Milestone Road, next door to number 25. and therefore have an invested interest to the outcome of this application. The points and questions raised in this statement are collated by us and the residents of the surrounding properties in the wider neighbourhood. Initially, when the first application for C3 was submitted last year, we and our neighbours at 23 were told by the new owners that it would just be like living next door to any other family, and that children placed there would be from the local authority. The new application to change the property to a Class C2 suggests that children may now come from prison or detention centre and/or have severe mental, physical, health issues, far from any other family setting. We also would like to understand whether the property meets the local housing need and whether the local authority was consulted. According to the government website, a local area risk assessment must be carried out. Has this been done, and are we permitted to view this? As a direct neighbour who has witnessed the renovations being carried out, it does seem that the owners have just been able to plough ahead with a clear expectation that this application would be granted. Anecdotally, I will comment that all of the work to the property has been carried out to a high standard and with little disruption and inconvenience to our property. However, the garden renovation is far from an idyllic family setting. With 6-foot-high fences all around the fake grass laid down, it now looks more like a detention centre or exercise yard than a suburban family garden. Number 25 is situated in the middle of Milestone Road, a street filled with elderly couples and families with young children. The house is 500 metres from a Priory secondary school, 160 metres from Smarties Day Nursery, and has a bus stop directly outside the property. Is this the setting really suitable for a home for potentially troubled young children? What measures, if any, are being taken to safeguard this community? With access to these locations and travel routes, there are obvious risks that we as a community would like addressed. Will the community and the above-mentioned establishments be informed if any of the residents have prior convictions relating to sexual or violent crime? In reference to a letter dated the 25th of June 2024 from the Crime Prevention Design Advisor, it states that parts of Westmill are currently being regenerated by the police preferred security standard called Secured by Design in a bid to lower the crime levels. The same letter states that the local Crime Prevention Design Advisor is not able to fully support this application due to the concerns over the properties potentially becoming a secure unit, which could result in increased calls to the police, pressure on an already overstretched service. They can find no mention of any measures to address crime, disorder, and fear of crime within this application. This is greatly concerning to us as residents, as no steps have been taken to address any concerns raised by the police. Our research suggests that these privately run care homes are a very lucrative business, with earnings into the thousands of pounds per child per week. With this amount of profit going to a London-based business, we question what is being given back to the surrounding area and local community. In 2022, a report by the Competition and Markets Authority found that 15% of the largest children care home providers made an average of 23% profit in a year. From an onlooker's perspective, it feels like our lovely town and neighbourhood is being used as a cash pinata for the private care home industry. We understand that the company is now recently Ofsted registered, but we would like to understand who is ultimately responsible for the welfare of the vulnerable children residing in this property. What measures are being taken?
1 minute.
Thank you. What measures are being taken to ensure the suitable level of welfare is being maintained? What learnings can be taken from the care home at Nine Springs Way? Additionally, there has been another application for White Hill Road. Now, how will the number of homes of this nature be regulated? How can we be assured that they won't keep popping up in the local area? Where can the local residents escalate any problems, issues or concerns? Who is accountable? And there seems to be many businesses associated with this application. Bluebird Care, Planners and Architects, Lumen Home, Major Partners Limited, and so the list goes on. It's all rather confusing. Is this estate really the right setting for this type of care home, considering the already higher than average crime rate? As you can appreciate, as a father of a young child being attached to this property, I am now very concerned over the development, and we and the local residents would like some guarantees over the safety and the management of this new business.
Can I ask you to finish up, please?
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very, very well timed. Are there any questions or clarifications from members of the committee? Councillor Bryant.
Thank you for that. Can I just ask you to describe again the source that you had for the area not being safe and where we can find the information, please?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I'll just read that paragraph again. I do have a CIPD number. So in reference to the letter dated the 25th of June 2024 from the Crime Prevention Design Advisor, reference CPD 11652024.
Councillor Tyson.
Thanks. Yeah, I was just wondering if, I think you said that you'd had not been contacted by anyone about this. So I was just wondering if you'd had any sort of communication with the children's services at the county council, or whether anyone has approached you or the other residents to kind of talk you through what was planned and what the implications of that might be.
Thank you. To address that, I would state that there has been a real lack of communication to all of the residents regarding the change of use of this property. We would have assumed, actually, when the application was submitted to change the residents, change a property from residential to a business in a suburban street, we would have been formally consulted. But no one has approached any of, well, not me personally, or any of the neighbourhoods who have signed the petition associated with this case.
Any further clarification? No, in which case we can move on now to the member advocate, which is Councillor Claire Billing, who will have 5 minutes to speak.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this application regarding 25 Milestone Road in Hitchin. I'd like to begin by stating that I support the principle of providing safe, stable homes for vulnerable children. Children in care deserve to live in communities, to experience as normal a life as possible, and to benefit from the same opportunities as their peers. And it's vital we don't stigmatise these homes or the young people within them. That said, we also have a duty to ensure these homes are safe, well managed and appropriate for the communities they're placed in. This application has raised legitimate concerns among residents, which I share. To begin with, the Hertfordshire Police Crime Prevention Design Advisor stated he could not support the application in its current form. He recommended that the applicant engage with the Crime Prevention Design Service, seek Secure by Design accreditation, and liaise with the local police neighbourhood team to provide safety education for staff and for residents. There's no evidence that any of these actions have been taken. The original plan was to house 2 children. This is now increased to 3, despite objections raised earlier. That increase, though seemingly small, can significantly affect the impact on the immediate neighbourhood, particularly in a quite residential area like Milestone Road. We can't ignore the broader context of the recent Casey review, which highlighted serious issues around safeguarding and exploitation in poorly regulated care homes. What reassurances can we give that this proposal meets the necessary standards to prevent such risks? Local families are also worried about the impact on their own children. With all the trees and foliage removed from the garden, there is little to buffer noise, and it's reasonable to expect that challenging behaviour and the language that sometimes accompanies it may carry. Is it fair that neighbouring children should be exposed to this? Furthermore, if issues arise, residents don't know who to contact. That's a serious concern. They want answers to 3 simple but important questions. Who is the accountable party? As residents tell me that the application has changed hands, causing confusion. How will they be held to account? And who do residents report issues to? At present, these questions remain unanswered. I don't raise these concerns to oppose the principle of care homes in our communities. I raise them because this specific application currently lacks transparency, safeguards and engagement with the very people and services it needs to work with. For these reasons, I urge the committee to proceed with caution and to ensure that all the appropriate assurances are secured before this application progresses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Billing. Are there any clarifications from any members of the Planning Committee? No. Okay. The next person I'm going to invite to speak then is the applicant, Mr. Alvin Osei Tutu. You have 5 minutes. I will give you a warning if required when you've got 1 minute left. Thank you.
Chair, members of the committee, good evening. My name is Alvin Osei Tutu, and I am co-owner of 25 Milestone Road. We already have planning permission under Class C3B to operate a children's home for 3 children and 2 carers living as a single household. We are simply seeking a change of use to Class C2, only to allow carers to work in shifts, ensuring sustainable round-the-clock care. This approach enhances safeguarding, supports staff well-being through appropriate rest and supervision, and ensures that the varying needs of the children can be met more effectively at all times of day or night. A shift-based model also provides better consistency in care planning, accountability, and alignment with the regulatory expectation for children's residential care. I bring many years of experience in regulated care services, and tonight I want to speak not just about planning policy, but about purpose, our commitment to providing vulnerable children with the safety, stability, and compassion they deserve. Let me be clear, this is not an institution. It is a home, a warm, therapeutic environment where children, typically aged 8 to 18, can heal and grow. These are not high-risk or offending individuals. They are children who cannot live with their birth families due to trauma or emotional distress. Our mission is to offer them a safe, nurturing, and family-style environment. They will be supported by trauma-informed carers, trained to meet regulatory standards under the Children's Home Regulations 2015. We are actively preparing for full Ofsted registration, ensuring continuous oversight and accountability. It's important to clarify what this home is not. It is not a secure unit. It is not for children with serious behavioral or criminal concerns. Each placement will follow a thorough risk and accountability assessment with input from social workers and mental health professionals. Children with high complex needs will not be placed here. We understand concerns from neighbors, and I'd like to address the key ones. Number 1, noise. With only 3 children, this will operate no differently from a typical family home. Shift changes at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. occur within quiet hours, and we've submitted a comprehensive noise management plan to ensure a calm, respectful environment. Number 2, safety. These children are not a risk to the community. They will never be left unsupervised. All carers are DBS checked, well-trained, and operate under strict safeguarding concerns. Number 3, oversight. This home will be regulated by Ofsted and supported by an experienced consultant who previously managed an Ofsted-rated outstanding service. This proposal fully aligns with the National Planning Policy Framework and North Hertfordshire's local plan, specifically policies HS4 and D3. There are no objections from environmental, health, or highways. There are no structural changes or increased parking demand, and no impact on local character. We are responding to a pressing national and local need. The Hertfordshire Sufficient Statement 2024 identifies a shortfall in small, therapeutic children's homes. Too many children are being placed far from their communities. We are offering a local, high-quality solution here in Hitchin. In conclusion, this is not just a planning application. It's an opportunity to give 3 children a second chance at a safe, stable, and a caring home. A home built on compassion, community, and commitment. I respectfully ask the committee to support this application. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Thank you. Has anybody got any questions for clarification on the committee? Councillor Winstanley, please.
Hello, thank you for that. Yeah, I've got a couple of points just to clarify, if that's okay. Well, first one is, how are the children referred to you? And you mentioned it's a local provision. Are they from the local area, and how local is that? And then my second question regards the ratio of staff to young people. Now, if they're working in shifts and someone can't turn up to a shift for whatever reason, because they're not residential and they're not living there, they have to arrive for work and they may not be able to arrive for whatever reason, you could potentially have one staff member to 3 residents who could be 18. I just wondered how you sort of would manage that, if you could clarify that.
Okay, so the referrals will ideally, we want to have local residents, local children. So we've been in liaison with Hertfordshire Children's Commissioning team, and they'll have the first refusal to place a child in our home. If obviously they don't have any need, then it'll be open up to the nation, to the rest of the nation. And to your second point, staffing numbers, we have a team. They don't live at the home. They will not live at the home. So should somebody call in sick, holidays, and so forth, this is why we're looking to have a C2 application. So then we can then call upon other staff members to come in to cover for short notice and so forth. I can assure you there will never be a case of too many children versus less than one staff member to 3 children, like you mentioned. There will always be enough staff to cover the needs of the children.
Do you want to follow up? Yeah.
Follow up on that. Yeah, I appreciate that. That sounds great. I mean, it's slightly hypothetical, and I don't want to sound pedantic, but where are your staff based? If someone can't turn up at 8 o'clock for their shift for an emergency, does someone have to come from London, Luton, Hitchin? I know it's hypothetical, but just to get an idea of where your staff are.
No, we currently have a team of 12 care workers available, support workers available, and they're all very local, Luton and surrounding areas. I think mostly within half an hour radius.
Councillor Bryant, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I ask you some questions about your business? Can you tell us about your business, how long you've been in business, how big you are, if you're Ofsted registered, etc.
Okay. So this business is the first children's home that we have. So the company is Marge Limited, and trading name is Lumin Home. So this is our first home. My current background is I have a franchise, Bluebecker franchise in London, and been operating, providing services for adults over the age of 65 for the last 14 years in domiciliary care settings. And all my businesses have been rated good with CQC.
Can I ask another question? I'm looking at the document, the Lumin Home document that is on the website, which is the selection criteria and the noise management measures. Is this one which you use in your homes in London?
No, the homes we have in London are not a children's home. They are domiciliary care settings. So we provide care for people in their own home. So that's a totally different business to this one.
So this document, how do we decide upon its criteria?
So
the document I've got in front of me, which is on the website. Yeah. How have you decided upon the criteria you're going to use?
How do we decide upon it?
Yes.
Right. This is in consultation with the consultant that I mentioned earlier on, who is going to oversee the running of the home and her guidance in terms of working with vulnerable adults. Vulnerable children in selection. Because we will have recommendations from social workers for placements, And then we'll have to basically use this as a guidance in whether the child being referred will be suitable for the home.
Prescott.
Thank you. I was actually going to ask a very similar question, and really to ask you to reassure the committee on your history in running these kind of operations, because a quick search on Companies House has a number of different businesses which all appear to do something very similar, but you're saying actually they're not very similar. But I noticed the company that you're talking about, the one you've referred to that we're running this home, is actually a very new company. Formed just at the end of last year, and in fact, you only became the effective controller a matter of a month or two ago. How could you just explain to us how you've managed to get the support or the not backing, but you are encouraged by Ofsted when the company is effectively a brand new company?
Sure. Just to clarify, the company you're referring to, we have two companies. Marge Limited is the owner of the home, Marge, which has been registered last year. Marge Partners, which I can see on your screen, is the one that's going to be running the home. Both companies are owned by myself and my business partner. So Marge Partners is the one that's going to be registered with Ofsted, and the trading name for Marge Partners is Lumen Home.
Councillor May.
Thank you, Chair. Question I've got is, once you've had a child referred to you, how long would they be likely to stay in the home, and how often would the suitability of that setting be reviewed for each of the residents?
Okay, our objective is to have a very low turnover of children coming into the home. We want to provide consistency for every child that comes into the home, and there'll be we have a very strict selection process. So provided a child is under the age of 18, we will hope they will be in the home until they transition into semi-independent living or to an adulthood.
Is that any follow-up questions, Councillor May?
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm assuming that there will be regular reviews, though, that it is right for that particular individual, because you might find that their circumstances change and it's not working for them and it's not suitable anymore.
Absolutely. We will work very closely with the social worker for every child that comes into the home to make sure what we're providing for them is suitable and it meets their needs as well.
Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my question is regarding the younger of the 18-year-old spectrum of children. Will they be going to school? And if so, will they be escorted to school or taken, supervised, drop off and pick up?
Absolutely. We will encourage all our children to go to school, and we'll work with social workers to make sure that is the case. We will have a company car that will drop them to their school, and we also encourage them, where the needs allows, to use public transport, because we have a bus right outside the home that allows that to happen.
Councillor Peace.
Thank you. Could you give us an idea of what the staff members actually do when they're on site, what their job looks like, particularly when, for example, the young people are at school?
When the young people are at school, the staff members, depending on the child's needs, sometimes they might need to be with the child in the school if they're required to be. If not, then they could just be. They will not be. Will not be in the home. Unless they need to come in for a meeting or supervision or etc. But if they don't need to be in the home, they will not be in the home.
Any other points of clarification? No. Right. Well, some of the issues that have been raised, such as the fact that Ofsted approval and things are not yet registered and applied to the company. Is there anything that the officer would like to add?
No, we wouldn't seek to duplicate any controls that other organisations such as Ofsted have. We're dealing with the application for planning permission and the proposed change of use. The actual day-to-day management of it will be for the company, and the matters of control would be with Ofsted, and also from the information provided, there will be social workers liaising and possibly NHS staff liaising with them as well. So that's not our responsibility in terms of the day-to-day supervision or management of the proposed care home. That will be for others to do that.
I have points of clarification just on a couple of points raised. I know, Councillor Bryant, you mentioned the selection criteria document. So it states in there that children with extreme behaviour difficulties will not be placed, and that selection criteria is part of a condition, so they have to follow that criteria, and that's conditioned. Also, regarding the crime comments, the crime officer comments were a response to the original plans, which were wrong. The existing plans, the original plans, showed that the garage conversion hadn't happened. So the crime officer was commenting on there was a door to the garage, which he didn't like, because that could be a means of exit, which could be unsupervised. We got the plans amended to show actually what the existing is, which is the conversion, which doesn't include a door. The crime officer was reconsulted, but no comments were received for the amended plans, just to clarify on that. And in regards to noise, environmental health had no objections, subject to the conditions of the selection criteria and noise management again, so that was conditioned.
Okay, any further points of clarification?
Just, you may not remember this, having now discovered that we have such things as crime design out officers in Hertfordshire, which I did not know. Was it Jerry Brophy that you were dealing with?
I can find you who the officer was. Mark Montgomery.
Right. Could I ask the officer actually if there's any way? Oh, sorry. Councillor Winstanley, and then I'll ask.
Sorry, it was just to follow up on that point that Councillor Billing mentioned in her statement regarding work suggested by the police that hadn't been carried out. Is that what you're referring to, the door to the garage?
So they said that the existing plan originally showed the garage conversion hadn't happened, which isn't the case. So obviously I forwarded those comments onto the applicant and they confirmed that that plan was wrong. So the garage conversion to the annex facility has now been, and that door doesn't exist. So the only in and out is through the front door.
As far as you're aware, was that the extent of the police's
major issues? Yeah,
right.
And they hadn't come back following the amended plans. So.
Are there any other questions? Can I ask a question? I just wondered if there was any way of allaying the residents' fears. Like obviously it came over quite strongly that there was a feeling that there wasn't a clear line of communication with whoever's going to be running the home in the event of there being any problems, and how. Is there any way that...
So the home will be run under Ofsted and Children's Services, so they will be point of contact for managing the property. We wouldn't be involved in that.
Okay. Okay. Right. Any other questions or clarifications required? Councillor Brown.
Just reading the site history, I'm a little bit confused, so maybe you can help me. So the original lawful development certificate was refused and then it was granted. What changed? Was it because of the conversion of the garage that hadn't happened?
Right, so the original lawful development certificate was to change it to C2. Yeah, so we refused that because it needs planning permission, a change of use to C2. Then they submitted C3B, which is a lawful change of use with under lawful development. And the C3 scenario is like a foster home. So the carers, that's their main residence. So the difference is C2 is that the carers don't live there.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Melissa, for all your help and answers. We have a recommendation from the officers to grant permission. Can I have a proposer for an application of a motion to approve, refuse or defer the application? Thank you. Councillor Brown.
I think on the basis that they already have permission for 3 children to live there as a single household with foster carers, I actually think probably having 2 people there constantly as shift workers is probably preferable. So I'd like to propose that we grant in line with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. And can we have a seconder, please? Oh, Tom. Councillor Tyson.
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you. Right, so can we now move to the debate? Does anybody have? Right, we have Councillor Bryant, please.
Thank you. I think that as a general principle that it's really important that as many of our local young people who are in care live in the area as can be. At the moment, that is not so. Lots of them live a long, long way away and have to come back to Hertfordshire when they're 18. I think I've been visited the site this evening on my way here just to remind myself which house it was, make sure I've got the right one. I think it's actually a really good location for children in care. These children are, the environment that their carers are trying to set up is one which is normal, a normal family. You walk to school if possible, you go to local shops. They do not come with lots of friends or support services. They have to find their way and they do need their support from their adults. I think it's a good location. In planning terms, I cannot see there's a problem with it. I will actually say my views about the company, but it's not actually our concern. The company is new. They have not been in contact with Ofsted yet. And the reality is that since 2017, the percentage of care homes which are run by private companies has gone through the roof. It was 40% and now it's about 80%. And it is a business, but that is not our concern this evening. So with that caveat, I will be voting for this recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Winstanley.
Yeah, kind of what Councillor Bryant said. I agree that the location I think is pretty good. Local schools on the doorstep, bus stop outside town. You know, it's in a community, which I think is probably where this sort of thing should be. I also have slight concerns regarding the fledgling company, but again, as Councillor Bryant said, that's not what we're here to do. I agree that the change of use to allow shifts is, I agree with that rationale, and that's what we're here to determine. So yeah, I will also be voting for it.
Thank you. I'm hoping that this is an example where we've learnt lessons from previous mistakes. Many years ago, in the road I live in, a children's home was built on the site of 2 demolished houses. It was a disaster from day one, and it has never really functioned in all different kinds of ways that the people have tried to make it function. It's been a pain to the neighbours for a start, and it's a classic example of how not to do it. And it seems to me that this kind of application we have before us this evening has hopefully learnt lessons from how the scheme in my road, which was not a success. Well, it isn't a success. They're still trying to find what to do with the building. But I think that smaller family-sized houses like this are much more appropriate. And also it's in the middle of a real estate, not sort of stuck on the edge of the town. So I'm just hoping that this will be a success, and that the operators will have learnt the lessons of how not to do it from the previous experience.
Thank you, Councillor Mantle. Councillor Prescott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I echo the comments of a number of my colleagues. I have some concerns. I'm not necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily want to live next to a place like this anyway, but then a lot of that is just down to perception, and is very much a fact. The factor of how the home is run is so important, and I think over time we as a society have learnt a lot of lessons about where to place these places, how big they should be. Very much the comments that Councillor Mantle was saying. I'm concerned that the business is relatively new, although I'm encouraged by the applicant, who certainly seems to sound like he knows what he's talking about. Unfortunately, very little of what we've been talking about tonight is actually a planning consideration, and I can't honestly see any reasons to refuse this.
Councillor Tyson.
Yes, thank you. I agree with pretty much everything that's been said so far, so I won't go on. But I'm looking particularly at in the officer's report at 4.3.16, the selection criteria, and I mean there's a good attempt there to sort of assuage the anxieties of some of the people living locally who may have nervousness about what is likely to occur on their doorsteps. And I think it is something of a shame that children's services haven't been able to be a bit more proactive in putting their side of this. But again, you know, it is a planning application through North Herts, and that's where we're at with that, really. So yeah, I wish. I do share the slight sort of implied ideological reservations about handing all of this sort of thing over to the private sector, but at the same time, I wish the applicant well and hope that this is a success for this, just for the sake of the children that are going to be in their care if this is passed.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Tyson. So are there any more considerations? No. We have a motion to, an officer's recommendation to grant permission for the change of use. Can we move to the vote, please?
That motion's carried.
Thank you very much to the members of the public who came and spoke, and I hope that the care home goes forward and becomes a success. We have had quite a long session now, so I think perhaps a little comfort break is in order while Councillor Mason and Councillor Billing come in, and then I can go and sit back down there. Thank you.
Morrison's, here we go. Right. Coming up as a trainee solicitor for some. Other person. Yay. I was quite happy being the trainee solicitor, actually. I thought that was quite grand.
We don't.
Right, let's move on. Sorry for the chaos with councillors coming in and out. There was a logic to it all, I can assure you. So item 10 is application 25000466 FP Morrison Superstore Broadway, Letchworth Garden City, and Henry Thomas, the officer, to present.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. So some of you might already be familiar with this site. This is an application for electric vehicle chargers and associated equipment in the car park of the Morrison's supermarket in the Letchworth Town Centre. This application is a resubmission. The first application was refused on the grounds that the acoustic screening fence would be an overbearing and harmful addition to the area. The applicant has since undertaken a revised noise assessment, which concludes that the acoustic screening fence would not be necessary. Can we go to the slides, please? So this is the application site. The area of car park is the northwestern corner, right adjacent to Station Way. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So this is the view of Station Way. So it reused the existing access, and the trees, the walling, and the walls and the railing will be retained. Next slide, please. This is the area of car park. So 3 EV chargers will be installed along the left wall, and on the right wall is 1 EV charger and the associated equipment. The trolley bay will be removed. Next slide, please. So here is the view of the footpath which runs adjacent to the site and provides pedestrian access into Morrison's from Station Road. On the right-hand side of the photo, you can see the neighbouring dwelling of 49 Station Road, which sits approximately 5.3 metres away and at a lower ground level. The noise assessment states that the output of the EV chargers, as heard from the windows of this dwelling, is approximately 30 decibels. Which I'm to understand is the volume of a whisper. The noise assessment states that this noise would be below the ambient noise of the day and therefore not perceptible to the occupiers even with the windows open. Next slide, please. So here is the proposed site layout plan. The proposal would result in the loss of 9 parking spaces. I will now show you the elevation plans for the EV chargers, the low voltage panel enclosure, which is the light blue box, which is quite small to see, sorry, and the substation enclosure, which is in brown, and the meter cabinet, which is the darker blue. Next slide, please. So these are the elevations for the EV chargers. No lighting has been proposed with it, although they do have a display on the side of them. And a condition is recommended to restrict the usage from 7 AM to 10 PM on any given day. Next slide, please. Here is the elevation for the low voltage panel, which is my understanding it's a switchboard responsible for distributing power to the chargers, and this does not generate any noise. Next one, please. And this is the substation enclosure. So the proposal does seek for this to operate 24 hours a day, which the noise assessment states that this is a low frequency hum, which could not be heard from the nearest residential dwelling. And next slide, please. And then this is a meter cabinet, which would be attached to the substation. Next slide, please. And then this is a photo of the other EV chargers which exist in the, Morrison's car park. There's just one EV charger which serves 2 parking bays. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Right. Do committee members have any points of clarification for the officer? Councillor Winstanley.
Yeah, thank you for that. Can I just clarify that the noise that you mentioned, the 30 dB, is that while the chargers are in use, or is that do they create that noise while they're sitting idle?
I'm actually not sure. I'd have to double check that for you.
Okay. Who's next? Councillor Prescott.
Thank you. I noticed one of the comments from one of the objectors is they're concerned about garish signs. I presume we can condition that there are no garish signs. I know the other EV charger in the Morrison's car park has virtually no signage on it at all. Is that going to be the case here?
Yeah, on the proposed elevations, there's no signage on any of it. So if they wanted signage, they'd have to come in with an application for that.
Thank you for that, Councillor Prescott. You stole the question I was going to ask. Thank you. Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, my question was really the same that Councillor Winstanley just asked. What creates the hum, and does it go away at 10 p.m. when the chargers are no longer in service? Or is it coming from a cabinet that does something else?
Okay, so it's my understanding that the 30 decibels is while it's in use. So it should be relatively quiet the rest of the time. And I assume once they are switched off, they won't make any noise. Whereas unlike the substation, which runs for 24 hours, but that's said to, I think in the noise report that says it outputs about 5 decibels from which could be heard from 49 Station Road.
Councillor Billing.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about has anyone been out to a similar place with the same setup and listened to it?
Yeah, I've used sort of EV chargers before, and I have stood next to them and not really heard much of a noise. I don't know if I've got bad hearing, but yeah, I assume they're relatively low. Sort of, yeah, like 30 to 40 decibels is sort of like a low hum.
Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Winstanley.
Again, similarly with the noise, do we know if they are lit, lighted, whatever the term is, and if they are, is that lighting constant, or are they on sensors or?
So it's my understanding that the only lighting on the EV chargers would come from the display panel itself. There's no other lighting proposed, and to my knowledge, there's not any street lamps in this section of the car park.
Councillor Brown.
Completely different question. So I noticed a comment in the papers about being a long way from the store for disabled people and as disabled drivers, and you showed us 2 other bays, the electric charging bays that are much closer to the front door. Is there any proposal, or could there be a condition to say that those would be reserved, the ones near the store would be reserved for disabled drivers? Well, if this were to be granted, so that disabled drivers get preference in the ones that are nearest to the store?
I might have to refer that to Sean. I think it's possibly outside the application boundary.
That is outside the application site. I don't think we would be justified in imposing any kind of negatively Grampian style condition, which we referred to earlier. I'm not sure that there would be a basis for a Grampian style condition. As we move forward, there'll be a lot more EV charging points at lots of places, and there will come a point where some are reserved for disabled people. But I don't think we've reached that point generally yet, that you do have reserved parking spaces for disabled people at supermarkets. They're the normal spaces as things currently stand. It's usually based upon a percentage of the overall parking. I think given the number of EV charging points proposed and existing, we probably haven't reached the threshold where we would start to reserve them for disabled people, but there will come a point in the future where more EV charging points are proposed at all supermarkets and lots of different establishments. As more and more of us get electric vehicles, it's inevitable that a percentage will in the future be reserved for disabled people, but not currently.
Thank you. Councillor May.
Thank you. Going back to the chargers themselves, I understand that they would only be operating during certain hours of the day. Is there an automatic switching off process then, so that they can't be used at night? And that presumably would mitigate the light from them at night as well, if they were actually off.
I'm not actually sure, sorry. Yeah.
The proposal is that they are operated between 7 AM and 10 PM, and is the condition recommend? And there's a condition proposed limiting to the use to those hours. I can't imagine that they'd want to light them when they're not in use. That's not the best use of energy.
Thank you. Councillor Prescott.
Really just by way of assistance to the officer. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but we've got a half a dozen chargers right outside the back door of the offices here. I've never heard a noise from them at all. I'm going to Tesco in Baldock all the time, and they've got seemingly hundreds of them there. You don't hear any noise from them at all. I'm answering a question I didn't even ask. Thank you.
The ever helpful Councillor Prescott. Councillor Billing.
Yeah, I was just wanting some clarification about a Grampian condition being new to the committee. It's a negatively worded planning condition that prevents development or other specified actions until certain works are completed on land not controlled by the applicant. I'm assuming that the car park at Morrison's is all controlled by the applicant.
Yes, it also relates to anything outside the application site. So the red line goes around the EV charging site. So anything that goes beyond the application site, we can't positively require something to happen. You have to negatively say something. So, for example, before the development commences, you shall do something. And it prevents the development commencing before they do something, rather than saying you shall do this. It's a technicality, but it's one that is necessary to be used because you can't positively require something outside the application site. You just seek to prevent something happening on the application site unless they do something off-site, if you understand.
Thank you. Well, I have no further questions. We have no further questions? No? Right. In which case, can I ask the first of the members of the public? Jackie says, I see no reason why not. So, Marlene Gray, you've got 3 minutes, and I'll let you know you've got a minute left. Thank you, Marlene.
On behalf of Nicola Cox at 49 Station Way, who is my... Mine's on... Can I start again now, please? Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. You're good. Your time's not on.
On behalf of Nicola Cox of 49 Station Way, who is my daughter, I want to talk about noise pollution first. The House of Lords Science and Technology Committee report on this neglected pollutant was brought into sharp focus by BBC News in March this year, when Professor Charlotte Clark clearly warned of the dangers of constant background noise being a life-shortening danger. The environmental assessment submitted by MFG is woefully inaccurate. The proposed chargers for this application have not yet been tested, and the noise prediction was made from a different site with different equipment. The planned EV chargers will be less than 10 metres from number 49, causing a huge negative impact in an area where actually on a quiet day you can hear a pin drop, but you would be able to hear the hum of the chargers. BS 4142 is the planning framework for ensuring that industrial and commercial operations do not cause undue disturbance to residential areas. It has been ignored. Nicola's right to a peaceful and private family life is still guaranteed under Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights. Let's just talk about proximity now, because it hasn't been mentioned. RICS report that if within 50 metres of a substation, house prices devalue by 15%. This application, should this application succeed, the sizable devalue combined with all the other negative impacts adds insult to injury, and somebody has to bear that cost. At least 75 metres is the National Grid recommendation for any substation planned in a residential area. Whilst not a legal requirement for UK planning regulations, it is an advisable planning consideration for obvious health and safety reasons. The clear and ever-present dangers of substation proximity distances have made national news headlines twice recently. The fire in March near Heathrow Airport caused global disruption all day, and then again on the 29th of April, more chaos when 100 firefighters were called to deal with the fire at an electrical substation in Maida Vale. The fire quickly spread to the neighbouring block of residential flats. These guidelines suggest a minimum distance based on various factors, including the proximity of neighbouring living bedroom windows. Nicola's bedroom window is 23.13 metres from the proposed substation. 75 metres should be a planning target, although not always possible if in a densely populated area. This is not a densely populated area. The proposed substation is just 20.97 metres from 49 Station Way. This fact alone should be enough for planning refusal. If successful with this application, a fuel station will almost certainly follow. That's why they're called MFG, Motor Fuel Group. This is their tried and tested
Could I ask you to wind up, please?
And generates more profit than Morrison's ever will. Should this committee approve this flawed application and a fire breaks out, corporate negligence springs to mind. Please accept this as your constructive notice.
Thank you. Do we have any points of clarification from Marlene? Councillor Prescott.
So you're not actually objecting to the charges themselves, but the substation, which is the thing that's going to be emitting the noise.
I think we're I think the chargers will emit noise as well. Absolutely. I mean, I think that there are so many things that haven't been taken into consideration. Noise hum at night time, you can add 10 decibels to it. It's a fact. It's you can read it anywhere. And the EV substations, you will find that Jackies will cover that more in terms of light as well and noise. But they definitely do make a noise.
Thank you. Any other further questions from panel? Fine. If I could ask Jackie Sayre. Jackie, you've got 3 minutes as well.
Thank you. I'm Jackie Sayers. My house backs onto Morrison's car park, and I'm speaking on behalf of my neighbours and actually anyone else who cares about preserving the historic character of the town and the rights of disabled people. I hope the councillors have had a chance to look at the pictures I sent you. We applaud Morrison's for supporting electric vehicles, and we like the two they already have. Charging points. They are modest in design, far away from neighbours and on a level with the store. They are actually a bit noisier than you're saying, but that doesn't matter because of where they are. And they are everything this proposal is not. The pictures that I sent you, taken from the applicant's website, show bright blue fixtures, which are at their sites all around the country. But even without the bright blue colours, we would urge Morrison's to site them somewhere else, somewhere further from 49 Station Way, for the reasons Marlene's explained, but also in a better location for people with poor mobility or small children. The BSI standard PAS 1899 calls for all EV chargers to be located and designed to meet the needs of all drivers, not just a few, not just a percentage of you, as you've just said, but all of them. And that way, disabled drivers have the same access, dignity and rights as everyone else. The proposed location is at the bottom of the slope, at the furthest possible distance from the store. The council has the opportunity and the power to stand up for disabled drivers by requiring the BSI standard, at the very least, be observed, as I would guess it has been in your car park here. Yes, they look like top of the range, and I'm sure they are probably very quiet. Turning to the environmental health report, it ends with, I can see no information in relation to light from the installation, so one can assume the existing lighting is sufficient. And the light from the chargers is minimal. Well, you'll see from the pictures I've shown you that it's quite strong. There is no existing lighting in that area of the car park. Morrison's agreed to switch it off due to the nuisance being caused to number 49. And the chargers will require extra lighting, probably very bright lighting like the pictures show. We say the council needs a light impact assessment before proceeding, if at all. The local plan and the town centre strategy speak of preserving and enhancing Letchworth's historic character, and you refused their previous application as the fence would be unsightly. Now the unfenced EV stations will be far more intrusive. Looking at those pictures, how will this proposal preserve and enhance Letchworth's historic character? Well, we feel you already have enough to refuse permission, but we don't see how you could grant permission without a revised noise impact assessment, addressing the errors that we've identified, a light impact assessment, which is clearly needed, a risk assessment regarding the substation, and as with the previous two applications, some sort of visual impression or elevations in colour that would show how this proposal will look and how it will enhance the town's character.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Are there any points of clarification from the committee? Speaker. I have one, and my apologies, you may well have said this, but the photos that you sent us earlier with the rather garish kind of thing, where did those come from, and do we know?
FG's own website. Yeah. And it shows sites they have all around the country. That's what their livery is, and that's what they will, we assume they will be producing. They haven't given you a view, and we think that's why.
Thank you. Well, perhaps when we get to the applicant's contribution, they may well want to comment on that. No other points of clarification. Okay. In which case, class, we have a member advocate, Councillor Claire Winchester. Claire, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here to support my residents in my ward who have deep concerns about the plans for EV charging station to be built on the edge of Morrison's car park in Letchworth. Now, I'm not against the provision of EV charging at all. However, I do consider that it can be better sited within the Morrison's plot and should not be placed at the edge that is nearest to residential properties. In the report, in the documents that you have, it stated that officers considered that a different location for the proposals would be preferable, but the applicant has refused to consider this. And I want to reiterate the impact on these neighbouring properties in terms of adverse noise, disturbance, and the resulting loss of amenity value for neighbouring homes and gardens. The difference in ground height between the car park and the closest gardens is a real concern, as is the noise from the chargers themselves, but more particularly the users. Users of the EV chargers and the headlights of their cars are at bedroom height for the occupant at number 49. Thank you for the earlier questions about the noise and light from the structures themselves. I would like you to also consider the behaviour of the users. People that sit charging their cars may be running their headlights and their radio for the duration of the charging session. These parked cars are not the same as cars parked and left to go shopping. So you will have also seen the indicative design and the assertion that this is reasonable for a superstore. And I would argue that in this location, the closest and comparable buildings are not the supermarket itself, but the homes nearby. And I'd like you to consider what a grey LV panel 2.45 metres wide and 3 metres tall would look like next to your home. It's not clear that the access to the chargers and the car park can be adequately controlled. Without this, there is the potential for the chargers to be used or even just attempted to be used throughout the night with that additional noise and headlight nuisance as well. And I would argue that it is premature to grant planning permission at this point and would ask that the EV chargers be resited elsewhere in the Morrison's car park. There's plenty of other options in the centre where the original ones that you've seen are, or more centrally, easier for shoppers and far from neighbouring homes, or on the opposite edge by their own goods entrance, where there would be neighbouring nobody at all. They have other options that they have not considered that would not impact their neighbours to the extent that this location does. So I feel it would also be premature to grant permission until we have those assurances about the functioning hours of the chargers and how they plan to restrict use overnight. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Claire. Do we have any points of clarification from the member? No? Right. Well, I had questions. I wanted the applicant to vote. So there isn't an applicant here. So that's messed up that planning plan. Can I ask the officer to respond to any points that they wish?
Yeah, so with regards to the validity of the noise assessment, I know there was a typo in one of the first few paragraphs regarding the location, but this noise assessment has been checked and validated by an officer in our environmental health team. So I do take it, therefore, to be accurate. Sorry. And with regard to house prices decreasing, that this is not a material planning consideration for us to consider at this meeting. I have no further comments.
I'm trying to pose a question. I'm still slightly concerned the difference between the somewhat colourful array that the photographs we've seen have sent and what seems to be being proposed. And I think you mentioned earlier that would require a separate application. Can I just have some clarification on that point, please?
Yeah, I think so. What is normally shown on their website is quite bright, but normally they have sort of like a back screen and a canopy over the top, whereas this is very sort of modest and it's just the EV charger itself. Without all the lighting and etc.
Thank you. Councillor Billing.
No chance that we can see a picture of it?
Not unless we go back to the slides and the elevations.
Can we do that?
Thank you.
Yep, we'll do that. Give us a second.
So yeah, that one.
Councillor Winstanley.
Yeah, thank you. Can I just clarify then? So what we're seeing there is what the application is. If they deviate from that, as in there's a hoarding and a canopy that isn't obviously clearly shown on that picture there, then they've breached the permission that we are potentially granting tonight. Right. Thank you.
Councillor Fernandez.
I just wondered if the officer was aware why they chose to cite them in that position when, as Councillor Winchester has pointed out, there are already some existing chargers. So is it because of where the cabling is? Is there some consideration? Why did they not consider putting it further away from residential properties, really?
I believe it's to do with the cabling and getting into the grid that way.
Thanks, Henry. Do we have Councillor Prescott?
One must assume that the superstore itself, the Morrison store itself, is drawing quite substantial amounts of power. Are they really suggesting that the only reason they have to have the chargers where the application says they're going to be is because that's where the cabling is. I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility to put cabling further away. I mean, one of the points I was going to make was, why not, if the thing that's causing the noise, the hum, is a substation, why don't they put that somewhere else? But I do take the points about Councillor Billings was saying about people parked in their cars. And as the chairman said, we don't have the applicant here tonight to answer those questions. But are we really accepting their argument that they can't put it anywhere else because of cabling?
We did suggest that they may wish to consider alternative locations within their car park further away from residential properties, but for various reasons, they said that they wish to propose them here. What we cannot do is refuse planning permission based upon that there might be a better location. All we can do is deal with the application that's before us and consider whether it's acceptable from a planning point of view. We've assessed it. We've assessed the noise that would be generated from it and the other impacts that would arise, and we've found that there's no reason for refusal. Notwithstanding that, we, as officers, we do consider that there may well be better locations for it further away from residential properties, and we have to consider the application that's before us.
Okay, so the officer's recommendation is to grant permission. Can I have a proposer for application of a motion to approve, refuse, or defer the application from the committee, please? Councillor Billing.
Propose that we defer it until we can have the applicant here to answer some of the questions about what it'll look like and why it can't be elsewhere.
Before I seek a seconder, I'm going to seek some advice.
Can't defer it on the basis that the applicant needs to be here, but we can defer it on the basis that you require further information, for example, the images that you were requiring and further clarification on the application. So further information, just to clarify. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Prescott.
In that case, I'll be happy to second and reserve my right.
Thank you. Do any of the officers wish to comment further before we go into debate? Okay, then I will open us up to a debate. Sorry. Yeah. So we have a proposal and a seconder to defer the application. Councillor Mantle.
I'm still a little lost as to what additional information we're deferring it to obtain.
Yes, I will take. Oh, someone. I had a speaker. Councillor Tyson. Me. Go on, Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, well, my answer to Councillor Mantle's question is, for me, I would like to know more about the extent of possible light pollution from the setup that's proposed, and I would like much more sort of visual support to have an idea of what it's going to look like if it's approved as an entirety. If so, I'm inclined to support the deferral, to be honest.
Okay, Councillor Mantle.
A different subject, Mr. Chairman. My memory, if it serves me correctly, is that we have certain additional powers as we made the land originally available to Morrisons to build their store and car park, but I don't know exactly what that is. It's some years since I've had any dealings with it, but could somebody, if we're going to defer it, could somebody please investigate whether we have any powers outside the planning system as a previous landowner? As I understand, for example, that there was an attempt by Morrisons to limit the use of the car park to shoppers, and that was not permitted because it was wasn't in the agreement. That that should be the case, that we may well have other powers which we can exercise.
Is that a rhetorical? Do we want to answer on that one now as to what powers we have, or?
No, I'm just saying that if we're deferring it, perhaps somebody could also look into that to see if we have any additional powers over and above the planning powers that we have. By the agreement to dispose of, by the agreement to make the land available to Morrison's in the first, because it was our land. It was a council car park that was made available to them. And I don't know the terms on which that was done.
I think, in fairness, it probably predates most of us. Councillor Mantle, your wisdom stands before us, but I don't think we're going to give a categorical answer on that now. But clearly, if we were to defer it, then we could. I can't take answers from the public. I'm sorry. Yeah, should we choose to defer it? I think that's a perfectly sensible proposal.
Proposing or suggesting.
Right. Do we have further comment? Questions? Councillor McDonnell.
I know that we're debating at the moment a deferral. If we were to say that we would grant permission with some stipulations, could we say that we wanted some sort of example or photographs of what they're asking for? Because there are on Google the two different types of examples of their, I don't know, what are we calling them, these EV things. So the one has got the big canopy with the lights, and then there's one that hasn't got any lights and literally just, but it's not really clear on the drawings that that's what they're offering us.
So you can defer it if you need further clarification, but what you're asking seems like a condition, but that needs to be considered at the planning committee. So if you feel there's insufficient information in front of you right now, you can defer and list exactly what information you require, but we can't put that as a condition. It wouldn't be a valid condition.
Thank you.
Could we put that as a condition? Rather than defer. Sorry, I know we're debating deferral, but
it's not clear to me what the condition would require. Normally, for example, when you grant planning permission for a dwelling and they've not provided the materials, you impose a condition requiring details of the bricks and the slate that they're proposing to use, tile or whatever it may well be. In this instance, we're talking about EV charging points, a substation and GRP unit. They provided details of what they would look like in terms of the elevation drawings. If members feel that that detail is insufficient to properly consider the proposal, then that would be a deferral. In terms of a condition, I'm not quite sure what I'd be asking for. Further drawings showing what they would look like, that's really a matter to consider when you're granting planning permission, not necessarily imposing a condition requiring some better drawings.
Okay. So we have a proposal to defer and a seconder. Is it worth at this point clarifying exactly why we would like to defer? The two points I noted was about light provision and about the visual support and what it would look like.
Previous covenant on the land that nobody knows about.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know if it's a planning committee. It's something we might want to consider, but I don't think that would be one of the reasons. Although, can I ask the officers of those?
Thank you.
Sorry, just to comment. I mean, there was significant questions around the siting of it and why it was being sited in that particular place. Is it possible to add that one if the committee so wish, or? Just want to confirm the offers. We're clear of our grounds for seeking deferment.
It appears to me that members have suggested that deferral is proposed because the details submitted do not give sufficient information with regards to a proper assessment of the proposal in terms of the materials that are used on the EV charging points, the colour, for example, of the EV charging points, what lighting would be on the EV charging points, and what general lighting is proposed. I noticed from the photographs that there is actually lighting columns in the vicinity. There's a lighting column, for example, next to the trolley bay that's proposed to be removed. The neighbour indicated that those lighting columns are actually switched off, but we'd probably want clarification as to whether that would continue to be the case. And so it's to do with the appearance of the EV charging points, lighting, and was there something else?
Consider the location. That clarification.
Location that's proposed.
Can I just add to that as well, that the nature of how it looks will also impact on the sound that it produces. So we'll need some sort of clarification of how the sound is affected by the different designs. Am I making sense? If it's got that backboard, it's going to be a different sound effect. So that would need some clarification as well. If you're asking them about a different design, or potentially two different designs, that would be two different noise effects.
We're not sure, but presumably whatever they come back with, we've already.
So it's already been considered by planning officer that the noise assessment that's been provided is valid. So we don't need clarification as such for deferral on that.
Yeah, so that's not grounds for asking for the deferral, but it's clearly a question that will be asked. Councillor Prescott.
Just for clarification, I assume I'm right in saying that a brief deferral we're talking about to either the next committee meeting or maybe the one after that. That's not going to run us foul of any non-determination rules.
An extension of time has been agreed till tomorrow. After tomorrow, the applicant could appeal against the failure of this council to determine the application. And that does run a risk of an application for costs against the council. Sorry. And also the planning application fee would need to be returned, because the fee return date is the 23rd of June.
Your light's still, Martin. Do you want
I know. So carrying on from that, if the non-determination condition would apply, which would potentially trigger an appeal and an appeal for costs, would we not be better to not attempt to defer, but to actually make a decision? And if we're sufficiently unhappy with it, to refuse it?
Well, that is an option available to you, and the applicant would be able to appeal against the refusal of planning permission. So that's an option available to you, certainly. All I was pointing out is the options that are available to the applicant. The applicant would be able to appeal against the failure to determine the application. With appeals against the failure to determine an application, government guidance indicates that there is a possible basis for an application for costs. If you were to refuse planning permission, then the applicant would also be able to appeal against refusal. And if they consider that that refusal is not sustainable, they would also be able to make an application for costs as well. So it doesn't change circumstances, particularly insofar as they could appeal against failure to determine, they could appeal against refusal of planning permission.
Councillor Brown.
Just seeking further clarification. So the return of the planning fee, does that happen anyway, whether they appeal for non-determination or not? And how significant is it?
The fee return would not be engaged if the application was refused. Fee returns are not automatic, of course, but there is case law that says that it should be. So, yes, we would return the fee in the event that we failed to determine the application within the relevant period. And as I said earlier, the applicant has a right to appeal. I'm not saying they would, but they would have a right to do so.
I've got Councillor Winstanley and then Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. Sorry to cover slightly old ground, going back to Councillor Peace's question earlier on. If we were to grant but are asked to impose conditions, could we say no awnings, no backboards, no lighting? Could we
we wouldn't need to do that, because what you're granting planning permission is what is before you. If they were to want to put anything else there, such as adverts or awnings, they would require further application for planning permission, or in terms of adverts, an application for advertisement consent, particularly if they're illuminated. That's one of the criteria where you often need advertisement consent. What is before you in terms of the drawings that have been submitted is what they would have planning permission for, and nothing else.
Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. I've been sat here quietly thinking, and thinking of the drawings that have actually been submitted. Those are what they would be given permission to do if we gave permission, nothing else. And also, I think there's an assumption by the applicant that we know more about EV charging points than we actually do. So our questions are because I think most of us don't use them. And if you look at it that way around, in fact, if we went back to the drawings, if we could possibly have them on the screen, can we just have a look and see what they're actually suggesting? Won't we? I know it's circles, but there may be a simpler answer to this. I mean, that is what we're being asked to consider.
Yes.
That is it.
Yes.
No backgrounds, no lights, just that.
And there's also the substation. There's another drawing showing the substation and a GRP unit, which are little further away from the residential properties that was shown on the layout plan. Perhaps we could see the layout plan to see where they would go in relation to each other. Yeah. There we go.
No, it's just that.
Because you realise the other side of the entrance, recycling bins.
Yeah.
So the blocks of purple would be the EV charging points, and the substation is the block coloured light brown.
Which, may I, Chair, suggest is actually as far away? Is this the furthest away from the residential housing?
Yeah. Yes.
I remind you, there was a photograph showing that there's a public footpath that gains access to the car park between the EV charging points and the residential properties to the west, and the brick wall alongside the footpath. But as shown on the photograph earlier, the car park is at a higher level than the garden to the residential properties.
Yeah. Councillor Prescott.
So I'm right in saying that the substation is the thing that emits the hum. And if that's the case, and looking at the design there, the substation is actually the furthest item away from the residential element. Do you have any, I mean, I'm not good at judging these things, but how many meters away from, I think, is that number 49? How many meters away is the substation? Just roughly. You said that without moving your lips.
If my scale's correct, it's about 16 meters, so that seems a bit different to the 22. Oh, from the bedroom window. Okay, I've just measured it to the closest point of the property.
Chairman, while you've made the mistake of leaving my microphone on, I am becoming minded to think that perhaps we should look at either approving or refusing. And I have to say, I'm minded to approve on the basis of what's in front of us.
And I'm looking at Councillor Brown, who
I was just going to ask, there's the footpath going down the left-hand side there, and are there not trees between the property and the footpath as well?
Yeah.
I'm minded to second Councillor Prescott's. Oh, we can't. Okay.
second. Hold on.
All right.
So I think Councillor Billing might be back.
I'm thinking along the same lines. And can I withdraw my proposal? Is that how I do it?
Confirm. So that's both the mover and the seconder of that proposal have both indicated. Can they do that? Or do we need to move to a vote, James? They've withdrawn it. So just to confirm, that has been withdrawn. So just to wind back to a question I may have asked earlier, do we have a proposer for the application of a motion to approve, refuse, or defer the application? Councillor Prescott.
I propose that we accept the officer's recommendation and approve with the conditions already there.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Brown.
I'm happy to second. Reserve my right to speak.
Okay. And are we legally, are we all in line now? So we now have a proposal to follow the officer's recommendation and to accept the proposal. So can we vote, please, in favour or against?
That motion's carried.
Thank you for everybody's forbearance for that. That was more complicated than I had imagined it was going to be. God, I keep doing it. I don't want to vote in favour or against. I should almost or abstain. John. So item 7, 2402-333 FP, land between Priory Farm and Wymanley Substation, Blakemore Road End, Little Wymanley, Hertfordshire. Paul Chaston to present.
Thank you, Chair. And good evening, members. I've got no updates for you, so happy to move straight on to the presentation. Okay, so to provide some context, this application's related to the Priory Farm solar array application, which was approved by the Secretary of State in March 2024, which I'm sure you're familiar with. This plan here shows the approved red line boundary plan taken from that application. So just to explain it a bit more clearly, you can see the parcels of land to the north and south of the label where it says Gravely Lane towards the top. That's where the solar farm is due to be located. As part of that application, an underground grid cable connection route was also approved. You can see the cabling route following the red line on this plan, and it moves from the Gravely Lane label west along Gravely Lane, then it turns south along Priory Lane into Little Wymondley village itself. Then the route travels west along Stevenage Road up to the roundabout on the western edge of Little Wymondley, and then that moves south onto Blackmore End Road, west along Spurbury Hill before turning north into the Wymondley substation. So next slide, please. This plan is from this current application, which proposes a revised cabling route. So the red line areas on the plan show the route would leave the solar farm instead at the southern end of the site through agricultural fields before joining Stevenage Road next to the Wymondley Nursing Home. The route would then travel west along Stevenage Road through Little Wymondley along the section of the previously approved route. The route would then leave Stevenage Road at a bus stop located to the west of the roundabout and then move along Public Bridle Way adjacent to Ashbrook before turning south and entering into the northern end of the Wymondley substation. Next slide, please. This plan more closely shows the eastern section of the proposed route from the southern end of the solar farm site, and then you can see the route runs parallel to the boundary of these agricultural fields here before arriving at Stevenage Road and then heading west along Stevenage Road itself. Next slide, please. This is a photograph taken on Stevenage Road next to the Wymondley Nursing Home, showing the point where the cable route would exit this field and join Stevenage Road. Next slide, please. This plan shows the western section of the route more closely, shows it coming from the roundabout and then leaving the public highway and following the route of the Public Bridle Way before going under the A602 and then turning south towards the substation. Next slide, please. This is a photo following on from the last plan showing the point that the cabling route leaves Stevenage Road at the bus stop with a view looking down towards the Public Bridle Way. So in summary, it's considered that the proposed revised cabling route would be less disruptive to residents and road users in terms of the traffic management required during the construction phase. And the primary reason for this is the cabling route would no longer require the use of Gravely Lane, Priory Lane, Blakemore End Road and Spurbury Hill when we compare it to the previously approved cabling route. Although there'd be some disruption associated with the construction phase, this would be temporary, lasting around 8 to 10 weeks, and once installed, the cabling would be entirely underground and not visible. The proposal is also subject to 10% mandatory biodiversity net gain, which is a benefit brought about by this application. Overall, the proposal would accord with the relevant local plan policies, and where applicable, I'm happy that other matters can be suitably addressed by condition. Thank you. Happy to answer any further questions, clarification.
Thank you, Paul. Do we have any questions for the planning officer? Councillor McDonnell.
I don't know if I should have said, but I am a Wymondley Parish Councillor. They have not objected to this proposal. I just want to make sure I'm allowed to be here. Parish Council, we didn't object to this. This is just an amendment to what was there, which has been approved already, right?
I think as precaution, if we can keep you out, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Got to come back
If
to the
that's
last
okay.
time. You don't get anywhere. Oh, everyone's going to be a member of a parish council. Thank you very much for raising that, Councillor McDonald. Right. Whatever. Councillor Winstanley.
Can I just clarify, how do you achieve biodiversity net gain from laying a cable?
So there's a requirement, because it's a full planning application, there's a requirement for 10% biodiversity net gain to be delivered. In this instance, those details have not been finalised and a condition's been imposed requiring the applicant to submit a subsequent biodiversity net gain plan.
Right. No other questions? Nope. Can I ask the applicant, Mr. Luke Rogers, to speak? Luke, you have 5 minutes.
Evening, Chair, members of the committee and officers. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of the planning application for the underground electrical connection between the approved Priory solar farm and the National Grid Wembley substation. This application represents a thoughtful and community conscious step forward in the delivery of clean renewable energy infrastructure. It's brought to you by AGR, the applicant behind the Priory solar farm, which was granted permission in March 24 and included a different connection route, as has been shown in the officer's presentation this evening. The purpose of this application is simple but significant: to provide an alternative cable route that connects the solar farm to the grid while minimising the disruption to local residents and road users. The original route, while approved, would have required temporary closures of narrow country roads such as Gravely Lane, Priory Lane, etc. Something that understandably raised concerns in the local community, with valid points of disruption, not just to residents, but also to local businesses. In response, and in an effort for as AGR to be a good neighbour, AGR has proactively developed this revised route, which prioritises the use of agricultural fields rather than public highways wherever possible. This approach not only avoids the need for full road closures, but also significantly reduces the impact on daily life for local community during the construction phase. The proposed cable will be entirely underground with no above ground infrastructure and will be installed using a combination of trenching and directional drilling to protect sensitive features such as Ashbrook and the existing woodland in the area. Once installed, the cable will be invisible and low maintenance with no ongoing disruption or visual impact. Importantly, this application has been subject to a thorough consultation and review. The planning officer has recommended approval, and I'd like to highlight that there have been no objections from statutory consultees. Environmental Health, Highways, Ecology, Archaeology and National Grid have all confirmed their support, subject to the standard conditions that have been agreed. This proposal aligns with both local and national planning policy. It supports the delivery of renewable energy, contributes to biodiversity net gain, and respects the character of the green belt by remaining entirely subterranean. It also reflects AGR's commitment to being responsible and responsive developer and improving its approved plans by reducing the impact of them. In conclusion, this is a well-considered, low-impact infrastructure project that enables the delivery of clean energy while protecting the interests of the local community. It is supported by officers, complies with policy, and responds directly to the concerns raised during the original solar farm approval. I respectfully urge the committee to follow the officer's recommendation and grant planning permission for this application this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Do we have any matter of clarification from the committee? No? Right, does the officer wish to? I'm sorry. Councillor Breath. No.
I've got no further comments.
She's dithering. Right.
I've got no further comments to make.
No further comments to make from the officer. So we have the officer's recommendation is to grant permission. Can I have a proposal for application of a motion to approve, refuse, or defer the application? Councillor Brown.
I'd like to propose that we grant.
Thank you. Councillor Prescott. Councillor Mantle. So we have a mover and a seconder.
Yes.
No other lights. Fine. In which case, can I suggest we move to a vote? Can I see if you could vote in for, against, or abstain? Thank you.
That's carried.
So we'd like to very quickly get Councillor McDonald back in. Thanks, Martin. Thank you, Martin. Have a fifth application. Item 8, 24-02713 FP, land at Radwell Berry Farm, Newnham Road, Newnham, Hertfordshire. Sam DeCoco to present.
Thank you, Chair. So just to start with, this application's being referred to committee due to the site area. The application is for the installation of a battery storage system with associated works. It's a temporary permission for 40 years. The proposal compromises 2 linked compounds. The northern compound would include a private substation transformer, distribution network operations room, control room, a pair of transformers, and a 132 kilovolt substation area. The southern compound would include 48 prefabricated containerized modular battery energy storage systems, 12 inverters and transformer modules, and a storage room and a laydown area. Can we move to the slides, please? So this is the site location plan. It pertains to part of an agricultural field accessed from Newnham Road to the south. To the northeast, you can see the village of Newnham, and to the west, you can see Baldock Service Station. Next slide, please. This is just the site location plan from an aerial photograph, and again, you can see Baldock Service Station there just for a point of reference. Next slide, please. So this is photo 1 taken from Newnham Road, looking north across the application site. Next slide, please. This photo is taken from the existing access to the field, looking northeast across the site to the eastern boundary. Next slide, please. This is a photograph taken from Newnham Road, adjacent to the existing access, with the site on the right-hand side looking west. Next slide, please. It's a photo taken from Newnham Road, looking west across the site. Next slide, please. So it's a photo taken from Newnham Road, taken from Newnham Road to the west of the site, looking east across the site. Next slide, please. This is a slide taken from further up Newnham Road to the west of the site, looking east across the site, which is where you see the electricity pylons there. Next slide, please. Taken from a similar location, looking southwest with the site to the right side in the distance. Next slide, please. This is a photo taken from the same location, looking northwest with the side to the left, showing the electricity pylons where the northern extent of the site is. Next slide, please. This is the proposed site plan. It shows the proposed layout. This is where the description of the development is shown. So you can see the two compounds here. The northern compound as described and the southern compound where the battery storage containers are. Next slide, please. This is the proposed landscaping plan. So we had the landscaping assessed by Place Services. They provided a response which is published on the website and summarised in the officer report. It shows some additional planting, screening any potential views from Newnham Village towards the site. Next slide, please. So this is, we're getting on to the slides of the details, so this is going to be a bit dry for a little while, so bear with me. This is the battery container plan. There'll be 48 containers. They're 9.3 metres long, 1.7 metres wide and 2.5 metres in height. Next slide, please. So here we have the proposed auxiliary transformer. Next slide, please. This is the substation layout. Next slide, please. So this is the private substation plan. Next slide, please. The storage space plan and elevations. Next slide, thank you. This is the welfare and control room. Next slide, please. We have the proposed district network operator room plan. Oh no, sorry, we've missed one. That does not look like the plant. That's the CCTV. My apologies. Next slide, please. Here we have the welfare. Sorry, because of that additional slide, I've lost my place. Can't quite see exactly what this is. I believe that's the district network operator run plan that I referred to previously in the incorrect slide. Next slide, please. Yes, here we have the proposed inverter and transformer plan. Next slide, please. And the proposed fencing plan. The fencing would travel around the two compounds within the site only. And then the last slide, the proposed gate plan. My apologies for that. The CCTV slipped in there somehow and wasn't on my list. I'm happy to take any questions about the report and the considerations. The summary of the report is that whilst the development is not an appropriate form of development in the rural area beyond the Greenbelt, there are no harms found and benefits in respect to the proposed development, which maximises the usable output from intermittent low carbon generation by storing energy when there's an excessive supply and releasing it when there's demand or peak demand. So it relates to sustainable energy by allowing it to be distributed at appropriate times rather than just when that energy is being generated by, say, solar energy. And there's also other benefits as set out in the officer report, notably quite a significant ecological and biodiversity net gain. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Councillor Billing.
Yeah, I couldn't see in the slides, what's the distance between the units?
Between
battery
the battery storage units, I just measured it, 3 meters.
3 meters.
Councillor Tyson.
Thank you. Yeah, Sam, you mentioned some sort of mitigation of the visual impact of this from Newnham. Will there be any planting on the to prevent or to hinder the views across from just from the road, which seems to be quite close? Will that hedging be gapped up to screen it from the road?
So our consultation to Place Services said that they are happy with the proposed development, but they wish to secure further details of the landscape and plan to make sure that the mitigation measures from key viewpoints are appropriate. So there are, whilst we have some details here, we've reserved a condition to make sure further details are submitted.
Go on, Tom.
Sorry. So as under key viewpoints, would you include the views from the road, from Newnham Road?
I believe so, but the existing landscaping plan does already state that new native species will enhance the existing gappy hedgerow.
Thank you.
So if this effectively acts as a storage buffer for electricity, where's the input and the output? Where does it connect?
So there's the proposed substation, and I believe it connects to the overhead power lines.
I think in this case, we might get an answer from the applicant in this case. So I'll hold that thought. Councillor Winstanley.
Yeah, I was going to ask that as well, because there was mention in the report about it connecting to the substation near Wicks in Letchworth. And I just wondered if, because of the last item, whether that route of that cable was included in this application.
Based on that, perhaps best to save that question for the applicant.
Councillor Peace.
This is a minor admin point really, but the report says that CPRE were contacted and there was no response, but they do have an objection received on the 14th of March. It's in the documents.
Tyson.
Yes, sorry if I may, just a couple more. Noise impact assessment suggests that there might be quite a considerable output of sound from this setup. I know it's not very near any sort of habitation, but have we had a comment from the environmental health officer on what looks to me like up to 85 decibels of noise? I haven't had a chance to look in great detail at what's on that assessment, but there's some quite high numbers there.
So I'm just checking the environmental health response to make sure that it's the correct environmental health response. One moment. Yes, sorry, they have responded. Minded to agree the reports that were submitted, no objections to the proposals in relation to noise or other nuisance.
Okay, I've got no more things. May I ask the applicant, Mr. Ryan, is it McIndo? Ryan, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Committee. My name is Ryan McIndo. I'm the Head of Development at Balance Power. Thank you for letting me speak today. Balance Power is an experienced developer of renewable and low carbon energy projects across the UK. We take pride in being a responsible developer, committed to engaging with local planning authorities and communities. We are amid of a national transition towards cleaner, more sustainable energy. This project plays a vital role in that future, providing essential support to renewable energy by storing electricity for use when it's needed most. Without facilities like this, surplus solar and wind energy risks being wasted. Battery storage is the backbone of a flexible and resilient energy grid, and this planning application demonstrates this. Demonstrates the site is ideally suited for such infrastructure. Before submitting the planning application, we actively engaged with the local community, the local parish council, the local fire service, and other stakeholders, and amended the design in response to ensure that the proposal considered a wide range of views. There are no objections from the public, nor consultees such as highways, flood risk, environmental health, ecology, and archaeology. Our design ensures a net biodiversity gain of over 40%, far exceeding statutory requirements, and the site is well set back from residential properties, ensuring no impact on neighbouring amenity. Whilst this development falls outside the narrow definitions allowed within policy CGB1, national policy makes it clear that significant weight should be given to renewable and low carbon energy projects. We've provided a comprehensive alternative site assessment showing that this location is the most suitable and viable option within the connection radius of the Letchworth bulk supply point. We connect via underground cabling, but it's not subject to this application. We have what's called a full works offer, in which case the DNO will be doing the works for the cabling. If you have any questions on that, we can talk about after. The site is not within Greenbelt, and that's an important point. We specifically select the site, so it was not in the Greenbelt. It's the first site out of the Greenbelt, and it's within the radius of the grid of the connection, where it is the only viable site within that radius. So it was when we did our site selection process, we were very hard on ourselves to make sure that we selected the right site that was away from residential properties for the noise, that could be cabled to the grid, and it was out of the Greenbelt. And if you kind of read the alternative site assessment that's on the kind of planning portal, it kind of clearly demonstrates that there are no alternative sites within the radius of the bulk supply point. We also understand concerns about visual impact and landscape impact. To that end, we've incorporated a strong landscaping scheme. This includes woodland belts, hedgerows, and meadow grasslands. That's been guided by both our own LVIA and an independent landscape consultants. The conclusion is there is no significant harm to the wider landscape character. And yes, those hedgerows along the road will be filled in, and a lot of the edges around the site will incorporate hedgerow plantings in order to minimize the impact of the development. But we need to remember that this development is set within a backdrop of overhead lines and towers. So it's kind of a perfect site for this type of development, coupled with the reasons I mentioned before. I would also like to highlight the temporary nature of the development, which sounds quite funny. After 40 years lifespan, it will be fully restored back to its original agricultural use. It's low impact, time limited proposal with high national and local benefits. In summary, this scheme supports local biodiversity, enhances energy security, and directly supports North Hertfordshire's declared climate emergency goals. It's a modern, necessary form of infrastructure that aligns with national priorities and local ambitions. I respectfully ask that you grant this application so that we can help deliver a more sustainable, resilient energy future. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the scheme, about how it's designed, how it will be delivered, how it will connect to the grid, anything. So far away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Winstanley.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I've just got two questions to clarify. One regarding the route of the cable. We'll get to that in a sec. And this one sounds a bit pedantic, but why that particular corner of the field? Because the same field sort of abuts onto the existing Baldock services. And you could, you could kind of argue that's already built environment, tag it onto that. It's going to be less jarring potentially. Just wonder why that corner was picked.
So that particular corner was picked. So the area that you're referring to was originally thought about. So the landowner, we're renting the land with the landowner. The landowner had has a large land holding, and we did an analysis of all the sites within his land holding to determine the best possible location for it. That services has a hotel, which although may not technically, I mean, maybe the planners can say this, we're going to confirm this, but we consider a hotel a residential receptor. In which case, although there's high background noise because of the motorway nearby, we couldn't kind of justify the site selection in that corner. Hence why we moved it away back to the kind of southern corner, and then it coupled that with lack of residential properties nearby and existing energy infrastructure in that corner, with existing screening from the trees. You see from the photos, it's quite well-established trees, quite well-established hedgerows. It's the ideal position within the land holding for the development. Everywhere else would have an unacceptable either visual or noise impact. And when you couple the two together, the kind of planning judgment goes off. Yeah.
And sorry, just the one regarding the route of the cable. Sorry, you said that's been undertaken by a separate company.
Yeah. So our grid offer from the DNO, which we accepted, is what's called a full works offer. That offer includes cabling, and the responsibility of the cabling is up to the DNO. So they have separate kind of statutory powers in order to do cabling themselves. So that's why it's not included within the application. If it was not a full works offer, it would be included within the application, but it's not a matter for consideration under this application.
Thank you.
Councillor Belling.
Mine's more to do with the fire service letter that was in one of the packs. In that, and I understand they're not a statutory consultee, but in that they suggest that a 6 metre gap between the units would be preferable to prevent thermal runaway, and also to give access to fire service if there was a fire. Is there a reason why it's 3 metres?
I'm not sure exactly what letter you're referring to. It might have been the one that was quite early on in the pre-application process. That letter prompted us to have discussions, quite detailed discussions with the fire service. So prior to this application being made to the council, we had back and forth over email, and then quite a detailed meeting on the site design. If you see, I don't know if you've got the plans open in front of you, but in the northern platform, for example, the substation has a turning circle, kind of looks like a for a truck. It's wide enough for a truck to turn around. You also see multiple points of, sorry, I'm a bit too close to this microphone, multiple points of access to both compounds. That's to provide the fire service with alternative means of access. So in the very unlikely event of a fire, what happens is the whole site shuts down. But if a fire service arrives and there's a smoke plume, for example, moving in one direction, it provides them with an alternative point of access so they can get into the platform safely and secure it. The 3 meter the 3 meter distances, now that's just that's a guidance at that point. That guidance which the fire service is referencing in that letter, if it's a letter I'm thinking it is, it's quite a number of years old. That guidance is currently being worked on by the fire service and central government in order to better align with the expectations of the industry and the kind of functioning of the site. Does that cover? Sorry, I'm rambling on a bit. Does that cover good question. But ultimately, the whole site is designed in the very unlikely event of a fire. For example, our drainage system has been designed to in effect block it's tanked and it can be locked to the environment. So if a fire is happening in one of the batteries, it's very unlikely, by the way, and water was perversely poured onto the battery, which would never happen because electricity and water don't really mix. But if that was the case, that water may percolate through the battery, pick up some contaminants along the way, and if we didn't have a drainage system designed the way it is here, that
You more than thoroughly.
Sorry,
It's fine.
Sorry.
No, your enthusiasm for it is
cool.
is in.
Yep.
Is
I know it's almost 10:30. Oh, it's past 10:30. Sorry.
Councillor Brown.
I'm still a little confused about where the electricity is coming from for the storage and going to. So there's obviously a connection to the Letchworth grid. What about the other end? And you're saying it's about evening out demand for storage, but I'm may forgive my ignorance, but I'm a bit confused because I would have expected to be linked to a solar farm or something like that, but I can't see that in this application.
No. So it's indirectly linked to renewable energy. So we've got the grid is here, and you've got our battery over here, and there's two cables. One's going in, one's going out. So it's import and export. So a solar farm only exports. So a solar farm generates the energy on site and exports that electricity to the grid. We have our battery over here. We import electricity, solar, wind, gas, whatever electricity is in the grid, and we take it, we put it into our batteries and then export it back to the grid when it's needed. So what the problem with renewable energy is that it's intermittent. So it follows the flows of nature, and those flows of nature don't necessarily match up to the demands of humans. So if you want to, if there's no wind and you want to put your kettle on at night, there may not be electricity there unless you have batteries in a renewable energy future. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Prescott.
It's quite easy to understand when you think of the principle of a reservoir with water. So it rains a lot, the water comes down, fills the reservoir up when nobody needs it because it's raining. But when it's very dry and it's not raining, then everybody needs the water and the reservoir releases it. I actually just had a solar installation at my house with batteries and Lord knows what else. So 2 months ago, I wouldn't have known what on earth you were talking about, but I actually do understand it now. The gentleman's enthusiasm is quite contagious. I mean, can we move to a proposal at some stage?
Councillor Winstanley just I've got Councillor Tyson and Councillor Winstanley with brief questions.
No, it's not a question. I was going to say, can I propose it? But yeah, I'll wait.
Tom.
Just one last question, again on the noise impact potential for this. I've just had a look on Google Maps, and Radwell and Newnham are about equidistant from the site, about 1 kilometre away. If that noise is sort of wind borne and does affect those villages, the environmental health officer I've just seen says that he's fine with this application as long as the noise levels as long as they conform to the predictions from your noise impact assessment. What if they don't? Is that a possibility that you can't rule out?
Look, you can never say yes, 100%, but yes, 100%, because the reason why that noise impact assessment is based on worst case scenario. So the batteries will never operate in that the way they've been modeled. So we basically, in the noise model, take the environmental setting, so all the topology, we take out trees because they're not a relevant consideration, and then we turn the batteries on 100%. And that's the reason what generates the noise. The batteries get turned up, they heat, and then there's basically an air conditioning fan which cools them down. That fan generates the noise. So the batteries are never operated at 100% for the duration of what's modeled. And 1 kilometre away is a distance you would just never hear it. We usually use kind of 300 metres. In this case, you could probably go shorter because the background noise level is higher because of the motorway. But yeah, 1 kilometre away, you would never hear it because the mitigations in place. Yeah.
Thank you
Cool.
very much. Right, Councillor Winstanley, I think you were suggesting we move to a vote, I think.
Yes, I know that these are needed to complement renewable energy, which I'm fully behind. So I'd like to propose.
So again, or if I jump back a bit and say, can I have a proposal? And then we did that at the beginning. Happy to propose. Councillor Bryan.
Second.
So the officers recommended is to grant permission. We have a proposer to accept that recommendation and to approve. And we have we have a mover and we have a seconder. Sorry, my brain's only just about functioning now. Am I okay to move to a vote? I haven't missed anything. Oh, is there any debate on the vote? You're just encouraging them now. I tell you. No, fair. Is there any further debate? Councillor Brown and then Councillor McDonald.
I don't want to prolong this, but there has been an objection from CPRE. Could we just have the officers' comments on that, please, before we go to the vote?
Yeah, of course. I'm just looking at it now. So the CPRE objection appears to cover the visual impact, the loss of best and most versatile agricultural land, also water runoff, chalk streams, and I'm just looking to see if there's anything else in there that's particular and potential implications of fire. And this is all covered in the officer report. We acknowledge it's best and most versatile land. We acknowledge that there is a potential for a visual impact, but we've had it checked by a landscape. A landscape visual impact assessment's been provided. We've had it checked. We've added conditions to just solidify that and make sure that it's all acceptable. So there's nothing within the CPRE response that hasn't been covered in the report.
I don't think I saw anything about chalk streams.
True. The lead local flood authority have obviously been consulted.
Moved their objection,
Yeah.
but they did object to
They
initial
removed their
permission. Okay.
objection.
I just wanted to say one last thing about the fire risk, because there was a fire at a BESS station in March. So there is a risk. I know that we've covered all the, there has been a report and you have given us quite a big explanation about, mitigating all of that, but it was really just a statement that they do catch fire.
Any further debate? Fine. We have so just to clarify, the office recommends to grant permission. That's been moved by Councillor Winstanley, seconded by Councillor Bryant. Can we have a vote for, against, or abstain on the application?
That's carried.
Okay. And in closing that item, can I just make thanking the applicant for being here and at this late hour and answering questions really, really thoroughly. And apropos to nothing else, the general point that it's really, really useful if the applicants are in the room. So thank you very much. I'm conscious we've gone past 10:30. I'm going to look at how quickly do we think we can do that last report? 2 minutes. Can we?
1 minute.
We'll give you a minute and a half, Sean.
No.
Yeah, carry on, please. More seriously, Sean.
Yeah,
can finish it.
So we've got some appeals to report. We've had 4 appeals lodged since the last committee, including one that's a hearing against related to an agricultural dwelling between Hitchin and Ickleford. And there's been 8 appeal decisions. 5 have been dismissed, 3 allowed. One of those allowed was the Respring decision. The report's there for you to read if you want to read the inspector's decision. I've got nothing else to add unless you have any questions.
So sorry, everyone wants to go home, but Respring, it's been allowed despite the fact that it didn't meet our policies on affordable housing, and there was something in there. I haven't got it in front of me now. About it could be the Ray Spring one that was allowed. About there was something in there about it could be dealt with at a later date.
Yeah.
This worries me terribly. The fact that something's been allowed with 5% affordable housing when we have a policy of 40%. And that it sets a precedent. Where is it in there? It says page one. Yeah, okay. Page 192. It says something about being able to add it in later. Can you comment on that?
Yeah.
What that means?
First of all, our local plan policy HS2 basically says deliver a percentage of 40% for a scheme of that size, subject to viability. That's the policy says that. They submitted a viability report that said there was viability issues. It was has been assessed twice by independent viability consultants on our behalf, and it was found that there was a viability issue. Now, in terms of what is called a viability review, there was disagreement regarding two matters that was never resolved. One is basically what return you'll get from the houses. And secondly, how much it would cost to build the houses. And those are two important factors when you're talking about how much profit would be made from the development. We were not able to agree that, so a viability review has been agreed in the Section 106 obligation that following some time into the construction of the development, when they know how much they will get from the houses and they know how much it will cost to build the houses, it will be reviewed to see if there's any additional profit which will deliver more affordable housing if there is.
On this point, sorry, because I think it's quite a big issue.
Yeah.
And is it possible we could bring us back to this bit of it, this sort of discussion on it?
Yes,
to the next meeting, because it's quite late and people are tired. And I think
Yeah.
I agree with Ruth. I think it's quite a fundamental debate, and I think it's worth. I know you're completely across the issue, Sean. I think it would be good if we could share it.
Of course.
In more depth.
Yes.
At a later meeting, if that's possible.
Because it's relevant to future considerations when
I think that's what we're all worried about.
Are doing the same case.
Is that okay? I
Yeah,
don't want to
that's
cut
fine.
you short. I just think it's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that okay? Councillor Stanley.
Just quickly, Sean, sorry, just regarding the agricultural building being built on the Old Hale Way, that's going to a hearing. Do you know what does that look like briefly? Is that here? When is that? Do we know?
The hearing would be held here, probably in room 2 on next door but one to us. Yes, it's a date to be. I'm not sure what the date is. I think a date may have been arranged. So at the next meeting, I'll report as to what that date is.
Ward councillors will be notified.
Anybody can attend a hearing.
Okay, yeah.
It's a public.
We will be notified.
Yes, there'll be notifications sent out as to the date of the hearing, but anybody can attend a hearing. It's a public event.
Yeah.
That's all. Can I thank the committee for your forbearance? Well, there's a lot of meetings. It hopefully won't all be this long. Thank you very, very much. I think we got there. Thank you.